Hi, everybody. Welcome to Redspin Sports Weekly live stream update. I kind of want to start off here while we get going and briefly touch on um, the Phillip Adams story, but make sure that we're putting out there that it is a developing story. Any takes that are out there that float around from one extreme to another at this point are speculation. Very little is known. We have the incident, we have what took place after, and then we have comments from an anonymous source, and then we have comments from a father, and that's it. Um, so I think a lot of people will take the father's statement of that I could have never seen my son doing this, but at the same time, I think football really messed him up bad. Um, and they'll take that and they'll run with that in whatever direction. We don't know. We have, like I said, an anonymous person saying that Adams was actually seen by this physician, but we don't know in what capacity. We don't know. There's so much we don't know, and that kind of gets into what I wanted to lead off with, which is in the world of sports punditry, all it is speculation, but it's speculation that's sold to you as though these people know. It's speculation sold as to where they have some inside baseball, uh, you know, knowledge of these situations that most of the time they don't have. And this is rampant in sports. I mean, punditry across the board is terrible. Punditry in the world of turn on CNN, turn on Fox, turn on any of the, listen to the experts, the pundits they bring in. That's disgusting in its way. That's disgusting in its way where they have a job and their job is to either sell a war or sell a narrative, and that's what they're there to do. And it's all there to sell advertising. But sports punditry is so based on speculation and wild speculation, again on that notion of we sell advertising. That's how we pay bills. And through that, the speculation is rampant. Take what we talked about a few weeks ago, right? When the Russell Wilson thing came up. I know that's a tiny story compared to this Phillip Adams story. But the idea that you have one statement that a quarterback made a month ago, a month and a half ago, and it's turned into a month and a half of every day there's a new update. Every day uh, they're going off on what they think is going to happen, what they think is going to be transpiring, what's going on in this man's head. And they have one sentence. He said one sentence. It's speculation. And the industry is predicated off of that. It's all they do, and they sell it 24/7. Some may do it a little bit better, right? Their analysts might be like, I like MLB Network more than I like ESPN. MLB Network's at least staffed with a bunch of former players, but even they are going off of speculation. They're going off of what they experienced, their lived experience, and they're trying to force that on to, what other people are going through. And we're talking about different eras. We're talking about different times. We're talking about different struggles. We're talking about all these different things. So all you can do is the best you can do at speculation, but it's still speculation. And again, it's rampant in sports. Um, it is all that happens. And I mean, all the way down to, what's game coverage, and Nate can hop in on some of this, how much of the sports industry makes its money based on telling you what they think is going to happen in a game, or if they just waited till the end, we'd know what happened. And 50% are right and 50% are wrong. And the industry's predicated on that speculation. Like, it's all speculation. So we want to talk about the Phillip Adams things, talk about the little bit that we know, but at the same time, we're not here to speculate because we can't speculate. It's all it would be. It's a tragedy. And
Yeah, but we can talk about like not respect. There's a difference in speculating, like to try to get salacious, like news stories, so you can break something and be like the first to kind of. I mean, I remember my last year. I regret like my last year in Tallahassee, in 2014. I regret that I kind of had like friendships with different like especially one like sports radio personality in my hometown who was and enjoyed like hanging out and stuff like that. So it created a perverse incentive to like want to break different news and stuff within the program and stuff. So there was one time in particular I remember hearing something from a guy around Tallahassee basically about a certain player being suspended for an upcoming game I think it was like a Louisville game, and just like in getting that passed along, and then having it reported out, and then thinking like that, I was like literally. I mean, not that I feel like terribly. Like he probably should have been suspended, honestly, given what it was. I'm not going to get into all that and start dropping names right now. Not because I'm like into like protecting anybody. It's just not really going to serve any purpose right now. And it's the point is that it was an issue where it just highlights that there's there's ways in which people in that industry like try to then go get people the next generation of that in the industry, and you do it by kind of proving your mettle of like leaking stuff of getting nuggets, right? You got to get the nuggets because like how do these guys get cachet? How do these sports like reporters, these like guys who have radio shows and media the big city media markets and sports cities in the U.S. that have NFL franchises, NBA franchises, whatever. It's like you have to break news. Like you have to. Like this is capitalism and it's based on that. So it's like I was essentially like because personal relationship and kind of like the just sort of benefits that can come along in terms of like who you hang out with and just whatever. Just like kind of I don't know. You're young and whatnot. You feel that need. I just remember afterwards just being like, what am I really doing this for, right? And I think that's like that was for me kind of a moment of clarity that like, that's not really a path that I really want to go in life. And you think of like this whole punditry business, but I don't know. What do you want to say, Justin?
Yeah, no, it's just it's one of those things where there are things and there's aspects of this story that we can talk about, and there's aspects and I'm not here to rain on anyone's parade. It's fun to be like, hey, who do you think's going to win this game? That's one level of it, right?
Yeah,
but like we're into
that's what I was going to say. It's just like not to differentiate that between like the industry of making money off of that. I mean, it is fun to speculate about what's the part of the anticipation. What's fun about sports is like the week before a big game, you at school, I remember as a kid, and you're like talking with your friends and all that, and you're like, what do you think's going to happen? No, this is going to happen. You're crazy, man. You're blah, 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 whatever. It's like that, but that's different than like a very commodified industry that's like just creating, controversy and scandal like by design.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So, I think that if there are some things that we could talk to about that, again, echo the fact that what happened in South Carolina today is, that's bad stuff all around, and there's not a lot about his mental state. There's not a lot about his condition post football. But one thing it did illuminate in two different stories. There's an ESPN story and I can't remember where I saw the second one, but it was the second story that also referenced this point, and that is that because he retired after 2014, he's not eligible to be scanned for CTE or concussion problems. Mm-hmm. So I have been digging around for the last hour trying to find it. It's an agreed upon between the NFL and the Players Association, that stipulation, but I couldn't find the outline of that. But yeah, I thought that was quite telling that, the NFL was quick to put into place, if you're going to retire after a certain point, then we're not going to put you through this protocol, right? It kind of goes back to their whole BS about how, no, we've changed a few tackling rules, therefore we've solved it. If CTE were real, because that's their take, right? Is that okay?
Well, what do you mean, Justin? Merrill Hodge says it's all an elaborate conspiracy, man, by Boston University scientists to destroy football.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't Merrill Hodge like a respected intellectual, man?
Yeah, clearly. Yeah, that dude's
Idaho State University, baby.
Sharp as the devil himself, that guy. But it also goes to show that by them putting that in place, they're really patting themselves on the back for thinking that they solved it, huh? If you retire after 2014, you don't even need this. We've solved all the problems. And I just think that's pretty telling in itself that, we won't have any record of this player's condition or anybody right after 2014 that retired because nope, sorry, you're not eligible to do this stuff unless you independently do it on your own.
Right. How's my volume? Can people hear me right now?
Chat.
Sounds all right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can hear you fine. It looks like Neil
All right.
can hear you fine.
Good. Good. All right. So a couple things, man. Now I'm ready to roll.
Yeah,
All right. So like,
yeah.
there's like this thing with Philip Adams. All right. So I do have a level of familiarity with the area. All right. So Rock Hill, South Carolina. It's just south of Charlotte. Mecklenburg County, a lot of people know because of the famous desegregation court decision, Supreme Court in like 1972. This is an area that's about an hour and 15-minute drive north of where I used to live in Columbia, South Carolina, also commonly known as the armpit of the South, but also where they officially had the secession convention and signed, the Civil War began essentially December 20th, 1860, and that is why, if you ever wonder, why Sherman made a point to burn Columbia to the ground. There you go. I bring that up a little bit. I am going to digress for a second and get into like
Yeah.
what was something with an interview I did with John Dolan, aka Gary Bretcher, the War Nerd from Radio War Nerd fame, along with Mark Ames. It's not, and also with the Exiled, NSFW Corp. You look at the cultural like impact like, he made as Bretcher in predicting so many events and writing about the sham that we all know about now, which was 1990s Russia neoliberalism, the raiding of their economy, the selling off of state assets, and then now trying to turn it into nothing. A unique individual, Vladimir Putin, who's responsible for all of that, right? I think it's invaluable the work that Ames and Dolan have done, especially since 2015 with Radio War Nerd, which is why I really wanted to talk with him. He for years taught at UC Berkeley rhetoric. He actually met Mark Ames that way. It's very biographical. It gets like very personal. We both like for him, it's like his Oakland Raiders fandom. We're made talking about war metaphors and how apt they are with sport and football in particular. And like in sort of like Warner like talks about Dolan talks about kind of like why for him he liked football more because like as a kid that was didn't really have friends, had a hard time engaging socially. Like, being like reading about military history was kind of just like an outlet. And he became like fascinated with like studying insurgencies. And that's why they go to places around the world that are really ignored by like the bourgeois press, like insurgencies that are going on right now, Ethiopia, Eritrea, that we don't learn, we don't hear anything about. We don't really hear the root causes about what happens in the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, even though we know it's in the wealthiest areas on earth. But why is it that, it's because all this stuff's being extracted out there. I actually just watched, like, about an hour ago, Justin, like a thing. It was sort of random. I was on YouTube watching one thing. The next thing came up. It was a DW, that German, public station. And they had a piece about like the rise of millionaires in the Congo and in southwestern Congo, closer to the Atlantic Ocean, actually. And it's like a city of like 14 million down there, and like we don't learn about this stuff at all. I mean, fortunately, my close friend of Mike's too, Biko Misabiko, who came here from the Congo, came to Jacksonville, Florida, came to the U.S. I mean, as an 8-year-old, after the fall of Joseph Mobutu, the U.S.-backed dictator who fell, and with him falling, Zaire also fell, and became the DRC was born out of that. You can't forget the legacy of like the what happened in Rwanda and Burundi too, and how that ties into like today in Katanga province and the mining that goes on. I mean, this little phone we have here, all these little devices we have, the film stuff, all the computers we're on right now, are like, that's imperialism. We can see like in a very tangible sense that like the wealth that is taken out of there is directly corresponds with the poverty that exists there. So, anyways, that conversation with Dolan, and I was trying to make the point there is they go all over the world and bring stuff. So, for me, he's been someone I wanted to really talk to for a while, and I was really glad we were able to make that happen. Thanks to Justin for really making some of the edits, like there. I mean, especially the ones where it's just cutting off like little bits of lag, with me not having with the War Nerd being over in Ireland, rural Ireland at the time. He's in New York now, but he doesn't really have a home. He'll tell you, like his wife in New Zealand, they travel the world and had to come back here, ironically, to get the vaccine, which is kind of wild.
Yeah.
We start off that episode riffing on like Boris Johnson a little bit in the UK and the irony of the Brexit UK, basically running laps around the European Union right now in terms of vaccination. And I mean, I'm not trying to like sit here and like sing the praises of Boris Johnson. It's just like I kind of find it like just sort of amusing though that it's just like situation with all the Brexit rhetoric in the EU. That kind of is the dynamic now. I mean, the EU took a very just neoliberal approach to all this. I mean, that's what as crazy as it sounds.
Yeah.
Like the U.S.
Well,
took much more. Go ahead, Justin, if you want to say something.
yeah, well, I mean, and that's that was some of the reason why they were able to draw. It's like broken clocks right 2 times a day sort of thing. But it's like, people forget that Corbyn's platform was for Brexit for different reasons, for avoiding the neoliberalism reason, for leftist reasons, which they, the media just use that as a way to just say, oh, well, he's the same. It's the same way that they would, whenever they'd find a similarity, to be like, well, Bernie and Trump are the same. Their supporters are the same.
Oh yeah, they're both populist. Sort of they're both populist, and that's another episode they do. Yeah, go ahead. Finish.
There was a positive leftist side to Brexit too that just never got publicized. I mean, Corbyn even rarely, got to talk about it. Even they'd blast him on it, but they wouldn't ask him about it. Why are you for it? They'd just be like, oh, well, and you're also for that, so I guess you're just a Tory.
yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's just there. I mean, I know we're talking to I'd say Professor Dolan. He wants to be called John, but the war nerd. He given the history, it's obviously very I mean, look where our politics are globally, neoliberal hegemony. So it's of course that there's going to be an EU, a Eurozone is going to have free market neoliberal politics until the U.S. empire is not the one running the show. But I think Dolan's case is kind of like, looking at, if you study nothing but wars and the things that, if you're doing the show or whatever, the last 5 years, and always, being interested in that, along with poetry. And I want to make a point about that in a minute, but like about poetry and the difference pre-World War I and post. But when you do that, you do look at harm reduction. And the reality is, when has there ever been, I guess, a period of, what is it now, since 1945, where European powers haven't been, at war with each other? So I guess you can, I guess that's one positive. But to Justin's point, though, you can't deny the fact that the breaking down of sovereignty and national boundaries, and the way that what that means for workers' rights and the ability to have countries institute have the ability even to raise pay, raise wages, right? You can't do it because if Brussels doesn't allow it, it's not allowed, right? It's violating the free trade agreement. So absolutely, man. So anyways, that's I could go into it more, but the point is, it's under the paywall now on Patreon. We did that a while because to keep doing this stuff, I'm actually in the process of moving now. I guess this is as good a time as any to get into my tying politics to my landlord situation here. I didn't really want to do this last week. I was just so kind of angry, but
we tried to get you to.
So anyways, I live in Jersey City, one of the most diverse places in in the U.S. It's which is a great thing, but there's also a class like Yasha Levine has a great platform he writes on and stuff, and does some podcasts on, called Immigrants as a Weapon. And this guy, my landlord, is a perfect example of Max Blumenthal basically told me it's he's a creature of the post-Soviet hellscape, right? Come to America and exploit. And this guy, so he's a Polish doctor who doesn't listen to people, doesn't he's not interested in hearing what saying something. It's just it's a matter of him being in charge. He's used to being near his office. He got Polish nationalist flags all over the place. Ever since I've gone into this place, I've been here 2 years and ready to move. Literally next week now, I'll be living right next to the New York Red Bulls MLS team stadium. Justin, actually over in Harrison.
Nice.
Which is right on literally the board, the city limit with Harrison and Newark, New Jersey. So that. Anyways, whatever. But yeah, this landlord guy, while I was out of town, he got upset, claiming that it's just literally bizarre. I mean, there was a leak, I guess, and I hadn't there was I guess some of the I've been shaving in the shower, which I've done, a lot of people do. It's not really a thing, and I guess that's the reason, supposedly in his book, that I'm out of town, so I had to have my roommate let him in. So then, but he also goes on to basically, I want you out by end of April. No, Mr. Nathaniel, I do not like the way you have blah 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 thing is not set up right. Blah blah. I'm like, what are you talking? It's honestly, I would say if my apartment was messy where I live, I'm not that prideful. It's really not that bad. I mean, given it working from home. And but this guy, like, just, it shows that certain people want control. And the irony is, like, in this world now, you're paid on time all the time and everything. It's So
Yeah.
anyways, he calls back a few days later, and he, clearly is not apologizing, but kind of like, oh, well, to me, it's what going forward, blah blah blah. But the thing that really blew me is when he said straight up that, like, he's like, a few months ago or whatever, like, he just literally just asked me in the context of you know, oh, no, sorry, I guess I'll get back to that, but a couple weeks ago when this happened, he's like, and what is up with your black roommate? Like, as if,
There
and
it
I'm like,
is.
well, what do you mean? Yeah. So, like, that's just the sort of thing. And then, like, before that, it's always like just you about stuff. Like, and it shows you. I think the reason I'm highlighting this is not just to, like, kind of go on a personal soapbox, but to point out. I mean, like, in a better, I mean, in not a great situation. I have chronic back pain issues I got to deal with. I definitely have a lot of things that or struggle as a result of the injuries I sustained, and paying a price for my love of football, and chasing the dream for as long as I did. But nonetheless, think of people that are in even worse power dynamic situations with, like, landlords. I mean, I got
Yep.
people that support and are there for me now. So I've had people that I know how to deal with situations like this, and I've had the people that invested time into me, helping me learn these things along the way. And anyways, and I have options too. So, like, people who don't, part of me wants to just, like,
Yeah.
straight up just fight and stay here. But part of it, I mean, for me though, it's like I don't want to be in a headspace economic relationship. I mean, where if it was a part of a larger tenant struggle, but if it's just like this guy's house, and I'm renting, it's like,
Yeah.
and I'm it's not. So that's sort of the way I'm looking at it. But I do look to, like, kind of like, I want to write something on this and get it published. I did start up a Redspin Sports Substack this week. There's nothing on that yet, but
Mhm.
I'm gonna start using that to get back to writing some. And which, for those of you who don't know, it's been part of been something I've done a lot in life. So I teach creative and critical writing to high school students. So it's definitely something I'm looking forward to getting back doing, and definitely I think there'll be something on that and how it relates, not just just my time, my experience, to the larger issue of just, like, the psychological abuse that, like, people are under as a result of, like, the way we deal with housing, home ownership, the power dynamics that are built into that, the little unspoken things, like the idea, just the fact that we uncritically still call people landlords. Going back
Yeah.
to the idea of, like, you're a lord of the land, and
Yep.
and that's just normal. And the idea that, like, when you think of housing, the basic human necessity is a nothing more than a mere commodity, right? And it's
Yep.
it's bigger than just any one asshole real estate agent, man. I mean, they're just playing a
Yeah.
game in
And
a system that allows them to.
yep. Yep. And
Go
how
ahead.
many people are in a situation, I moving to the Midwest from Seattle, did allow me. I rented when I first got here, and I, like, I bought solely for the reason of, I could afford it simply because Midwest. Um, but I could have been in Seattle the rest
Neil's
of.
Neil's dropping
Yeah.
bars tonight, by the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Rent Pig is great. Um, but, like, in all the time renting, whether it was here, whether it was Seattle, whether, to think about how many people were in a similar spot, and then from that, how many more people are in a worse spot, to where, you're two paychecks, three paychecks from being homeless.
Yeah.
Um, I bought solely because I wanted something to where, if it's three paychecks, like, I mean, I can, foreclose, and they can't kick me out for 9 months, which is crazy to think about. It's crazy to think about that we're looking for, like I bought a house simply so I could have 9 months of security if you miss paychecks. But I mean, how insane is that?
Yeah.
Because so many people are 1 to 2 paychecks away from being homeless. It's that's the reality of renting. And as renters protections go away, I mean, when I first moved to Seattle, it was one of the strongest renters protections. Renters rights were large. By the time my girlfriend and I left, I mean, they had dwindled away. I mean, to nothing. There's no protection. There's no, and that's through small, one policy at a time. Let's all right. We'll change this. We'll amend this. We'll change this. We'll amend this. Well, you do that 18 times. You do that 12 times. However many it takes. Now renters' rights are gone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is, and I get it, you want to fight when you get in those spots, because by fighting, that's what can help reinforce renters' rights and renters' protections by like kind of bringing the stuff back to the surface. But at the same time, it is, yeah, if you lived in a community and all the other tenants were feeling this too, yeah, absolutely, jump in that fight and fight with them. But yeah, that's America.
That's America. Yeah. I mean, but like the reality though is that he realized he did, like, there's a moratorium on, like even eviction and stuff like that. There's not the idea of also saying that is just insane, especially as I've documented. We've had an issue where Mike Tyson actually owns co-owns a sports bar down the street, like a Portuguese sports bar. It's got like paint on the outside. There's like Giants helmet, Jets helmet, and it's like got a picture of like Mike Tyson up there, boxing, Buster Douglas or something. But like the picture, and he's got like a pigeon coop on the ceiling, on the roof of this place. All right, he loves his pigeons, and like he like whatever. So during the day, like Mike Tyson's pigeons leave the pigeon coop, right? And because of my landlord, for this is going back like 2 years now. I looked back through my text messages, and I've been trying to say, like, look, man, the bathroom and in the kitchen, I'm having like Mike Tyson's pigeons just like coming in here like on the regular, man. Like, and like they're stuffing this thing up, and it's like I'm constantly having to like hit the bang 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 on the all the cupboards and stuff, and to try to get them out of there and to come back in. We just need someone to come with like a big ladder, because it's like we're on a huge slope here, and even though I'm on the first floor, by the time you get back to this part of the house, it's like think of San Francisco basically. All right, it's the hilliest part of that. That's what this is like where I am right here. So it'll be nice to actually be in flatland again starting next week. But yeah, so I mean something like that, of course, is of course not his his fault, right? But it's like issues such as but it shows how fundamentally just like people. It's important that people don't like let the people like that get called out on who they are and what they're doing. I mean, this is a guy who is always like acting like he's such he's noticing and identifying suspicious behavior at all times. He wants to know, like he seems to think that like there's just always some kind of like suspicious, because I mean look, I get it. A lot of immigrants stay within insular communities because it's like they're not welcomed and they feel like, and that's been a historical thing. But in this case, it's like no, it's like he lives in a very insular community because he doesn't want to like step outside that really, and it's a lot more comfortable for a guy like this who comes from like it's like the sort of the nouveau riche of the post-Soviet Eastern Europe era, and it's just like you just almost can't make this up. I mean, like I'm gonna dox the guy real quick now, and so
while we're being clear with
what
while we're being clear with calling people out for who they are, we're also not condoning Mike Tyson, who is a convicted serial abuser and rapist. Anyway,
all right.
I always like to just throw that out because his career got completely revitalized by being thrown in movies and being thrown in all of these things, and and it's not that like I guess I'm not trying to say that I'm anti-second chance or anything, but at the same time, there's that part where you just like when I see him in things, I'm just like, yeah, no, he went to prison for raping somebody. Anyway.
So anyway,
which
does this guy look like a guy that's like wanting to help like people find housing and like just be a humanitarian who is trying to uplift the world and leave a legacy of social transformation? I mean, this guy prescribes like is one of the largest medical marijuana doctors I found out in the state, but it certainly hasn't led to any kind of other kind of compassion that goes outside of that, and there's obviously compensation for that. And
absolutely,
I do not go for medical treatment with him. I never was like, it never appealed to me to have your landlord know your medical records, anyways, even before we knew any of that. So that's that guy. I mean, I don't know. I just like Max Blumenthal had some other choice words to say. Maybe I don't want to get sued or whatever, but in terms of yeah, where kids back. But yeah, I'm out of here in a week. But that's just I don't know, the post-Soviet like 1990s and the idea of people like being you know unleashing the free market led to like a certain class of people that became super like enriched by that, and like they don't see exploitation as even exploitation. They just see it as like in a social Darwin type like view of like the world's just that's just like the higher, if you can like take advantage of, if you can you
Yep.
do what you can, strength, strength.
Yep.
And it's like and it's fucked up, man. So anyways,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah. No, absolutely.
all
I
right, so
mean,
where's go ahead, finish up, Dustin.
no, I was just going to say, like there's two types of, you can deal with like the post-Soviet, or you can deal with like the Cuban, or better yet, the Dan Le Batards, the children of Cuban exiles. So yeah, it's like, take your pick. I don't know which one I'd rather deal with. But like neither's fun.
Dude, liberal anti-communist, your favorite, right? Yeah,
Oh
they're
God,
so
love
woke,
them.
and they just but like it's all about it's the Jeremy. You know who really personifies that in sports? Is Jeremy Schaap. Outside the lines, ESPN, like always, like, and it's like
Yep.
everything's really nuanced, everything's extremely
Mm-hmm.
complex, and in this rumination, and it's like just, but then look, it translates right to liberal Zionism, because it does right that what is liberal Zionism but just like endless just postulating just endless like, oh, this and scenario this and,
Yep.
oh, this pains me, and oh, like you're bad, you're terrible because you're making me feel uncomfortable now. Mock eviction notices, instead of it being something where like you realize what it's like to feel like that if you actually had a real
Yep.
eviction notice. There's even a principal in Jacksonville, Florida, at Douglas Anderson School of the Arts, that a consultant literally from the district told her to do this like experiment where like you for like an hour or something, whatever it was, you like have like kids from different ethnic groups all have to go sit in different rooms as a means to like actually sit there and reflect on like what Jim Crow was like, and then have like discussions about
Yeah.
it. And like I really personally don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, if it's done the right way, and there's like a and it's discussed, especially in a place where there's a lot of ignorance about the history of race relations and what that entails, and you know having that it's like, but anyways, the district, once they got a little little heat from people complaining, the liberal types, like, oh no, we're post-racial America, blah blah blah, probably,
Yeah.
then of course it doesn't matter that a consultant, one of their high-paid consultants, and that's a problem across all public education, man, is the issue of like consultants from like the Houghton Mifflins of the world, the Pearsons of the world, the McGraw Hills, these companies that have like just a massive industrial complex, like in all these different sectors of capitalism it happens, but like in education it's so pernicious because it leads to the formation of like how people's ideologies are you know basically exist in the world, and what they're based off
Yeah.
of and how they're formed,
Yep.
and to have such an outsized influence and put in the hands of these corporate like consultants. So at the end of the day, their jobs are all about being able to get the data. It's all about the data. At the end of the day, you can just say whatever you want
Yeah.
about holistic type education, this and that, but do you have those numbers that show growth, right? If you're like been one of these failing school districts like a Camden, New Jersey, where it's been taken over, or the way Jersey City was before they got home rule back. It's like all these state monitors care about is, can you get the results, right? So it's all
Yep.
teaching to like this idea of like teaching to the standard. The text is a vehicle, and like what does that do?
Yeah.
It creates workers actually that do go in and become mindless type drones that are like, I think
Yep.
of Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, and like in Department of Hatcheries, and how you're essentially conditioning people for their roles in a class divided
Yep.
hierarchical society. So I think
Yeah,
it's really important we make those connections. There is a connection to sports here, but go ahead.
no, and the education thing is so paramount. I mean, who are the two biggest billionaires that are into, charter schools and controlling curriculum? It's Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates. I
Bill
mean,
Gates, yeah.
because they want a more docile, focused worker of tomorrow.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah. And we teach the watered down version already, and that's too far for them. Like, it's insane. Anyway.
Yeah. No, and like Neil's right here, and they do badly, right? And they cut off funding,
Yep.
so that's starting to help. But the reality is, this whole funding question is tricky because it's like, what does funding mean? It means, okay, Congress is going to cut off a big check, but it has no bearance on like how that money's spent once it gets to districts, and how much of that doesn't actually directly affect the classroom. It gets into like, we're constantly piloting, like part of when you're, I've been at like I've been at literally a school that was ranked the #1 public high school in New Jersey, and at the moment, right now I'm teaching at a middle school that's like absolutely one of the worst, and I'm actually working on like a kind of a curriculum committee after school, working with admins on it, but you do get a chance to really go through the data, and I just want to scream sometimes, like, about, without giving away too much info, that like it's everyone knows they're spinning their wheels, and that like these problems are bigger than just the domain of education, but yet we can't just do nothing, right? So there you go.
Yeah.
we all gotta justify our existences there, getting like, I guess, whatever the cheap supplement I'm getting there for sitting in on those things virtually in the afternoon now. But on a bigger level, it's like everyone's is just justifying their existences, and it's ironic because you think about like all the criticism of socialism, right? It's just like bureaucratic. That it's like,
Well,
they
yeah.
would say, oh, public schools are socialist, and that's the problem,
And the criticism of socialism, like let's not beat around the bush. Let's two things are true no matter what, and that is that the critics of socialism rarely know anything about socialism. The true critics, the ones that get critics of Marxism haven't read Marx. I mean, look at the Jordan Peterson debate with Zizov. I mean, like, clearly it did not take long to just realize, wow, dude, you've really never read anything. Like, you don't know anything. But at the same time,
you're just being an academic intellectual who's talking down to like the working class.
But
by the working class, I mean these like rich, like asshole philosophers who like aren't exclusively in academia. So,
dude made like 140 grand.
A tad bit facetious.
Like, it is, but at the same time, if you're a Marxist, you're expected to be a scholar in what, 6 different areas? You need to be philosophy, finance, like you need to understand how all societies have worked, all of them. You know what I mean? Like right. That's the way that it works, right? Is that, so if you want to be a critic of Marxism, you need to know very little and haven't read any Marx. But if you want to be the scholar and for Marxism, you are expected to be a scholar in 8 different realms. But at the same time, all their critiques are, it's a misinterpretation of it, and then critique the misinterpretation. That's the only game plan. It's all they have. All they have is misrepresent what anything communist, anything Marxist, anything, just misrepresent it and then critique the misrepresentation. Mm-hmm. And it's the only game plan. So it is. Sorry, I just wanted to draw those lines real quick because it's the same. It's been repeated throughout history. It's all there is. If we're going to have these conversations, we have to swallow the fact that we need to become scholarly because we're expected to be. It's and we need to be able to combat this because the game plans worked. I mean, when I say the game plans worked, I mean it works in mainstream media because those are the people who get the voice. But in order to take them on, understand that this is the game. It's always been this way.
All right, so I put up here a little bit. You see, there's former Clemson quarterback Deshaun Watson, name, image, and likeness being used without his compensation on NCAA
Yeah.
football 14, which people still put up. They every year that was the last year of it. So people like, I mean, I did it one year actually, but I don't do it anymore. But it's just I don't even play enough video games anymore to even do that. But it is sort of, I guess, getting around that. But no, the game, there's nothing wrong with the game if they just pay, if the guys were compensated,
Yeah.
right? So that's the problem. But yeah, of
Yep.
course, Deshaun Watson, there's more coming out. Like he doesn't look good for Deshaun Watson right now. I don't know what else to say on that other than just like we're going to have to
Yeah.
see how that process plays out. The sheer number though, I just have a hard time yeah, that level of
Yeah.
creepiness. I mean, it's something. And I do think there's a connection to like kind of like a repressed like sexuality under like growing up in like essentially what is an oversized young life club, which is Clemson football. All right, where you're like all in here together and like we all get bat. There's like you can look at DeAndre Hopkins like getting like dunked in a baptism pool on the practice field when he's playing at Clemson. So back to education
Yeah.
though, and why if people always want to ask me, ask Mike, I'm sure I'm just in these conversations with people like this, but where why is it that more athletes like the NBA strike, and why aren't more people like taking militant stands? I mean, first of all, like athletes, I mentioned this many times, are like ensconced in a lot of ways, are held, but that's I'm not saying this as an excuse. I'm looking at it like just sociologically. Now, the flip side of that is like if you have that situation where prominent athletes have been identified at a younger age and are going to be been identified as having potential of making it out, that's already going to make them less likely to get involved in radical politics just from that,
Yep.
and their families would be the first ones to be like, yo, what the fuck's wrong with you, right? You got a chance to like do something for us, and you're like, oh no, like what you want to be poor? I mean, I've heard this from like even friends of mine that I played sports with that have like gotten that are from working class backgrounds that have gotten, that's their family's reactions a lot of times, that like to them,
Yep.
saying maybe they don't want to go into some corporate type profession. But nonetheless, the main thread here that needs to be hit at is the idea of education and the point of it, right? And that's what I was trying to say about consultants and all this. And the point of education is there's two different ways you can look at it. Are you learning how, or are you learning to ask why? Right? And like you don't want that.
Yep.
There are annoying people who can ask why too much, right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking more in a general sense, like a holistic, broad sense of people that are learning. Are you learning to develop your brain to be fully human, to have and the irony is that like for so many jobs, Justin, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but
Yeah.
like a basic liberal arts humanities education is giving you the skills to be able to communicate effectively, to write effectively,
Yep.
to like and
Yep.
then the specialization. Yeah, I mean, sure, when you get to college, whatever, if you want to go into like film production stuff like that. But the idea that trying to strip away the humanities, like stuff about they do emphasize writing, but of course it's writing of like for the purpose of business and like writing resumes and analyzing informational text and stuff. So it's like that needs to be pushed back against because that dynamic, the dynamic of,
Mhm.
and I'm not anti-vocational school. Like these things are not all mutually exclusive the way a lot of people try to portray these out to be. They try to make it seem kids at a younger and younger age have to decide essentially what they want to do. And this affects athletes, right? The college
Yep.
football model are trying to get the guys that are the most compliant. Some teachers grade based on how well you follow instructions? Are you a good kid, right? They like essentially doing well means just like obeying, right? Where others like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
I would always make the point when I'd be teaching high school, being there with my creative and critical writing class with freshmen, be like, what's stopping you? We're a few blocks away from the subway station called the Path, which connects like, Jersey City, Hoboken, Newark, and stuff with like Manhattan, World Trade Center up to 33rd Street, two different lines. So I was like, what's stopping you from just running out of here right now, just hopping on the path and going in and just like exploring the city, going do something fun. Like why stay here right now? Like what's the point? Of course, you're like first they're kind of shocked, like what's this guy talking about? And then secondly, it's like, well, you start thinking about all the levels of like just like control and fear that are built into just sort of like internalized, right? Into like making sure you obey, the rewards that are built into that, the kind of the stimuli, the positive like
Hmm.
feedback you get from doing the right thing, getting good grades. But so it's easy for high achievers especially then to like to just get clamp down on that. But then think of like players that have like had this athletic prowess and then the training that goes into it and stuff. Like maybe if you're not like the best, you haven't been surrounded by education in a way where it's like really reached you and made you like have a love for learning, right? It
Yeah.
transcends just like obeying the teacher or listening to instructions or can you follow directions. And that is a problem because that gets at the question. That's my answer essentially. Is like until we start transforming these larger conditions and we start realizing that like that can't really happen without much larger social movements, political movements, and like in a building of power in a broad-based, like multiracial, multi-ethnic, like working class front. It is, I think, at its core built up through the trade unions. Has to be, no matter how backwards they are, no matter how frustrated it is. You can't just escape from the masses, right? You can't just like go. We've seen the effects of that, of like
Yeah.
radicals in the past that have tried to go create dual unions and stuff like that. And it's like, but then you're isolated, right? If you can't, you have to try to transform the mass organization, right? And but
Yeah.
anyways, I'm gonna wrap up. The point is, there's a larger point, but like that is why we see such a, and that's why it's important to praise people like Justin Jackson, the people like Jaylen Brown from the Boston Celtics. Um, Plenty of, I mean, there's others too, man. I mean,
Yeah.
but I think those two really stand out. I think as I think the creme de la creme of the NFL and the NBA right
Yep.
now. Maybe just a Major
Yeah.
League Baseball player that you could mention.
Uh, they're former, a guy you and I both love,
Oh,
but current, current.
Madly Ordonez.
Yep. Yep. But current, no. And it's sad. It absolutely. But you sound like you're shitting on the idea of the best and the brightest, Nate. Don't you know that the best and the brightest can answer the question, who was president during the Mexican-American War?
I mean, if you want me to, I can name
It's
every U.S. president in order from one
hey,
to Biden, but I'm not going to do that to
but
you.
but
All right?
but what I'm saying is that the idea that the best and the brightest, which is a really really gross book if you go back and read it,
Oh,
because it's
I
just
wasn't even thinking
reassuring.
on that. You're right. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's. I'm sorry,
it's
man.
it
But like,
is it is it's showcasing to the country that don't worry, these men at that point when that book was written, all men, white men, all white men, these all white men are the creme de la creme, the cream of the crop. They're the best of the best. And you go back and you look at some of the questions that were asked on standardized tests at that time, and even at the university level, it really is questions like, who was president during the Mexican-American War? They don't ask the question, why did the Mexican-American War happen? Or what
oh,
started the Mexican-American War? Because again, it's to get it. All this was a diatribe just to get back to your
yeah.
point, right? Which is that, yeah, we teach people to name facts, to name dates, to name people, but not tell why.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and if anyone out there is like curious, it was Polk. Polk was the president during,
James
but
K.
like
Polk.
but
Yeah,
like
you had Harrison who
but
died after a few days in office, basically, and then you had
mm,
after Harrison you had Tyler, and then you had Polk. Yeah. So yeah, let's see. Look, Nate for president,
it's
number
yeah.
47 during the New Cold War. Oh man, are you like? I hope you're not really asking me to do that. Like, I mean, I literally can do it. But the thing
Hey,
is, it's like
what where am I in this cabinet though? Like that's
I don't know, man. But I'm just saying, it's like the other thing too is that like in this day and age, it's what does it really prove? Because there's always going to be people that are like, oh, you're just looking at that. I'll do it with my eyes closed. All right, like real quick, just like I can do, and we'll just this is it. We're going back to I got a football thing going. Look, the only reason I know this is because of like studying different eras of history. I have a weird kind of like mind where like I can like see like decades. I kind of see things in decades, sort of, and like and through like 4 year intervals of different elections. So like it's through. I don't like memorize the list. I just know that like logically who has to come. So I'll close my eyes and do this, and like that. This is the end of this. Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Quincy Adams, Jackson, Van Buren, Harrison, Tyler, Polk. After Polk, I believe you had you had Zachary Taylor, whose son became a Confederate general named Richard Taylor. And I remember my granddad actually took me to see the Battle of Mansfield Battlefield in Louisiana, where that was. But it's just interesting. His son became a Confederate. Nonetheless, he was succeeded, Zachary Taylor, by none other than a Millard Fillmore.
I'm fact checking this whole time. It's great. You're nailing it.
I'm nailing it. All right. So then I believe it's Franklin Pierce, who has that university in New Hampshire named after him. Followed by Franklin Pierce was one who was like the guy who just did nothing when the South seceded. You know, like waiting the time. See, back then the inaugurations happened like in April instead of like January of the year after the election. So in 1860, James Buchanan was president. And South Carolina seceded like December 20th, 1860, and then like the Deep South states in early January of that year. And he just like basically did nothing, because it wasn't until like Lincoln was in office, April 12th, 1861, finally there was things kicked off with the Confederates actually fired on Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor. So anyways, moving on from Buchanan, we obviously know Lincoln is next. And that it's clear that like led to so much of the issues we're facing today, because we still are, because unresolved issues. I mean, you had the fact that Bleeding Kansas was going on, Harper's Ferry a couple years before that, and it was inevitable. And the fact that like any arguments, and I'm just so sick of this, and I'm going to say this and move on, about these lost cause, like neo-Confederate BS of people that have like a whole multiple generations. I mean, you're talking Northerners too, that were taught this idea that like, we needed reconciliation after the war. We all had to come together as Americans. It was like what was the other like line you'd hear a lot too, that Lee was different, he was a gentleman and all, like people just accept this stuff uncritically. I mean, he did come from a more higher class like social strata than like a Nathan Bedford Forrest or some of these more, but that, I mean, if anything, that's like a badge, that's a knock against him, based on from leftists. I mean, Lee he wrote this letter in 1856, Neo-Confederates love the site, where they say that he said slavery is this great moral and political evil, but he actually, what does he say in it? He also goes on to say that it's only through divine providence, and these people are much better off under our strict discipline, and that no kind of troublemaker should ever try to push that forward. So I mean, I assume just like divine providence, hey man, we could still be waiting, right? Just follow the Robert E. Lee approach to liberate national liberation and self-determination. It's not a pretty picture. So nonetheless, moving on, Lincoln.
Hey, wait. I have to just throw out there, because every time anyone brings up Lincoln, you need to throw up the Dakota War, and you need to throw up that the last federal hanging were members of the Lakota Uprising. Anyway, go ahead. Just like to throw that out there. It's important. It's really important.
It's important, but it's also like you got to. I look at it in two different spaces, though. It's like there's also part of me, and I totally get that. That's one level. But then there's the level that where you look at Lincoln as like a historical figure in the context of like preserving the Union, and what I mean by that is like I was raised like just kind of casually hearing like, oh, I had to go to like the South, like kind of like people didn't really were over like kind of talking about the specifics of it, but it was just like the Confederates were like the good guys. You just kind of routinely kind of heard like that was just kind of like they were just Southern, divorced totally from slavery, and always with an idea like be a pushback.
They separate.
Like, oh, you're just being you got to be those liberals in education trying to brainwash you. The irony of them talking about brainwashing, it's like it's just astounding. But it was always like stuff like Lincoln's like a tyrant, blah blah blah. And the things they criticized him for were like some of the best decisions he made, such as like suspending the civil rights of all like the Confederate leaning legislators in Maryland and having them all arrested. I mean, the idea of that like you deal with, I mean, what other government or situation, can you imagine if it's like any other type of situation? It just shows the ruling class and the fact how much money was being made in the economic relationships. A lot of those assholes, they didn't want, they would probably be actually all right with the South just seceding if it came to that, as opposed to slavery ending, because they made a lot of money off of that and stuff. But Lincoln locked those people up, suspended habeas corpus, ensured that there was not going to be a confederacy surrounding Washington, D.C. And they would, like, I remember always hearing, Lincoln's a war criminal, blah, blah, blah. But they're not talking about what you were talking about, Justin, and anything he's giving two shits about the Lakota. So it's just this, like, contradiction it's like of American
Yep.
politics, but it's important you note that for sure, and it shouldn't be minimized. So, anyways, moving on, the most detestable of all, I think, Andrew Johnson. I mean, it's impossible to overstate how tragic the death of Lincoln was. Beyond just like what you want to say, I'm not talking about Lincoln the man. I just mean that someone who had seen the nation through that war and had the moral authority, like the ability to like team up with people like Thaddeus Stevens, the radical Republicans that were pushing radical Reconstruction, um, and but instead you had a white supremacist who was just jealous of the plantation elite. Andrew Johnson,
Yeah.
who was born in Tennessee but was a blacksmith in born in Lawrence, South Carolina, to a blacksmith. I have actually a number of friends there. I've stayed in Lawrence, South Carolina before. It's a upstate town, not as far up as Greenville and Spartanburg, but getting up that way. And anyways, so this guy is a Andrew Johnson is it's terrible, man. He immediately undermined Reconstruction from the start. The whole Sherman's field order that was rescinded was all because of Andrew Johnson. All the hopes of Reconstruction, of any kind of a actual just Reconstruction, man, that could have set us on a different path, man, and helped us and really avoid almost a 100-year backward step in history as a result of the redemption of the South, as they would call it, which meant the end of Reconstruction, the redemption of the white South. So Andrew Johnson, you cannot emphasize that enough. So moving on, after Andrew Johnson, you have Ulysses S Grant, who's actually buried right across the street from where I was the other night on a little date with a friend of mine who was up at Columbia University. You don't say buried. Who's buried in Grant's tomb? That's a joke because it's like a mausoleum sort of thing. And I know you can get into stuff with that too, but that's he was after Andrew Johnson. Then after Grant, you had the corrupt election of 1876. I'm gonna pick up here fast, but Rutherford B. Hayes, and they had the paper saying Samuel Tilden had won and all that, but Rutherford B. Hayes actually winning based on a corrupt deal, and the deal was that he was going to completely withdraw federal troops from the South, and which ushered in the period known as the era of redemption that characterized the 1880s and 90s, which ushered in Jim Crow and codified it. And and that was the same period where you had a state flag like the one that was just changed in Mississippi last year, adopted in 1894. So this notion that oh, it's heritage, not hate. Now look at the context that stuff came out of. It's pretty damn clear. So after Rutherford B. Hayes, you had, I think, one of the better, all in all. I mean, no U.S. president is a good guy, really. I mean, it's there's a few that are not as bad as others. I think James Garfield was a more progressive-minded president, but sadly he was assassinated. So we never get to kind of fully evaluate the record there. But with Garfield, he was a New Jersey guy, and there's a lot named after him here actually. Chester B. Arthur was kind of a big Tammany Hall, I think, New York City guy, politician, became president, was pretty in-depth, I think, from what I understand. Then you had the whole split presidency thing. The only time Grover Cleveland's the only one to become president. People are worried about this now with Trump, I guess, the idea of being president, losing, then coming back. The only one who ever do it was the big pro-business, super anti-worker, anti-union guy in Grover Cleveland, someone who truly deserves the scorn and just loathing of any militant socialist or just socialist that wants to fight for a better world, and however they do it, or just a decent-hearted human being. So that Gilded Age, we're not quite there, but almost there. Then you had Benjamin Harrison. He straddled that time between Grover Cleveland and Grover Cleveland. Yeah, and then you had then with Grover Cleveland after Benjamin Harrison, you had McKinley then come in right after Grover Cleveland's second term.
I have some things. I have some things to say about McKinley, but
yeah. So God, I had no idea I was gonna do this tonight. Sorry, I had to turn that.
Yeah, down. No, you're good. You're good. When it comes to McKinley,
go ahead, real quick.
Yeah, when it comes,
let me just finish naming them real quick so I can open my eyes and then just come back to McKinley. So it goes All right, McKinley. After McKinley, you had Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt. Then you had William Howard Taft. Then you had Woodrow Wilson. followed by Warren Harding, one of the most just corrupt buffoons ever. Like it's just like hilariously, like absurdly corrupt. Then you had Calvin Coolidge, and then you had after Calvin Coolidge, you had this wonderful guy named Herbert Hoover.
Yeah.
That, there you go, man of the people, right? No, FDR followed Herbert Hoover, was president from 33 to 45, and then unfortunately Henry Wallace was moved off the ticket in 44. It could have been transformative. He would have become president.
Yeah.
If instead Truman did, and we know the history of that. Truman, famously it said Dewey beats Truman in 48. Remember that? And then I guess it wasn't. And then in 52, you had Eisenhower beat Adlai Stevenson for the first back-to-back, blowouts, basically. Between Eisenhower 52 and 56. In 60, you had the famous debate with Richard Nixon sweating during the debate in black and white and looking all nervous, and Kennedy beating him. So then you had Johnson becomes president, wins in a landslide over Goldwater in 64. 68, you had Nixon beats Hubert Humphrey. 72, Nixon annihilates George McGovern. 76, Carter. After Nixon, then you had Gerald Ford for 2.5 years from 74 to the early 77. Carter from 77 to 81. Ronald Reagan from 81 to 89. H.W. Bush, evil, it can't even be fully understood.
Yeah.
From 89 to early 93, then the Clinton administration from 93 to 01. Bush from 01 to 09, Obama, 09 to 17, Trump, and now Biden.
Yeah.
So what were you saying about McKinley, man?
I only have one fact check for you. You only had one mistake. It was the middle initial you had wrong.
Oh, no, I'm going to be up all night, man.
It's all good, man. You had a middle initial wrong. It's fine.
Yeah.
No, McKinley, or as I like to call him, President Denali. That's a little mountain name change joke.
That's a good one, man. That's actually a progressive. No more Mount McKinley.
Yeah, no.
Mount Denali.
But McKinley had a famous quote when it came to the war with the Philippines, and that was, he claimed, this is just American imperialism. Like, this is really like a shift in our narratives, right? We've been imperial, since we took Mexico, since we stole Mexico, since we stole, all those Southwest states that were Mexico. We've been imperialist. We're an imperialist project from the beginning. We're a settler colonialist, from the get-go. But at the same time, McKinley was a shift in narrative. So I'll say this really quick. We'll get back to sports. McKinley's famous quote about the war with the Philippines was, "We need to Christianize and humanize the Filipino people." We then went on to kill 2 million of them. That's like a prime example of narrative shift in our country's history, where we shifted it towards, we're the arbiter, right? Like, I think there was a lot of divine right bullshit that happened before that in our imperialism, but that was the first time that narrative really kind of took hold of what our role is, the wink wink role. And that is, it is our job as arbiter to determine, around the world, then what happens. So yeah, it's a special fuck McKinley thing. It's one of those things where he was assassinated, and I don't care.
Oh yeah.
But like that phrase, right? When you tell the country on your platform as president at that point in this nation's history that we are Christianizing and humanizing another people, but what you're doing is killing 2 million of them. And let's be honest, they've been a proxy colony since. So I just, special hate in my heart for McKinley. Cause that, like I said, it was a shift. It was a shift in the narrative to when this country decided to claim the human rights bullshit, that we do today, claim the arbiter bullshit that we do today. So yeah, McKinley, special place for being that first. Sorry.
And no,
we're off that.
check. No. I could literally go on, as y'all could probably tell from that for all night. But I want to. So if you ever want me to go back on some certain president, I am like a kind of a I have a weird kind of expertise in American history, I guess. Like that it just built up because it's funny at first because I was like trending in the wrong way as a kid towards like being like a conservative type, like growing up like playing little league baseball at NAS, having the grandfather I do, to then becoming like realizing having that all fall apart and like a lot of it around like really seeing the BS of the lost cause and like in the way that is like just portrayed and the disillusion you feel when you recognize and fully understand something to be the fraud that it is. Getting injured was part of that. I'm gonna get back to like this Phillip Adams stuff here, and I think I was gonna wait like I got you. Actually hold that for 1 second. So you see that we mentioned Deshaun Watson, but the reason that's not why I had that up here. Let me pick actually another picture. Just roll through here because we were talking about in general. Well, I think we did actually hit on that. We hit on the education stuff with college football and everything.
Yeah.
So we can let that go real quick. So yeah, on to Phillip Adams real quick. Give you a little context because I used to live in the area. He went to South Carolina State University, which is in Orangeburg, South Carolina. It's like the biggest HBCU in the state there. We know, like you said, what his dad said about like him thinking football had some kind of role in it. It's way too early to like speculate about that. But what I can say is that like there's a within like he comes from a culture. He was a seventh round pick. All right, he had some success in the league, made it. But what I do have a connection to is the Piedmont Health place. So like in 2006, Dr. Robert Anderson, who is there in Charlotte, lives half the year in Switzerland, half the year in Charlotte. He did Derek Jeter's like ankle. He's done some of the other NFL players. He's the team doctor for the Carolina Panthers, and he did my second right ankle reconstruction. That finally, the one that actually worked after a pre-surgery earlier that year that actually failed, and really, ultimately, when I look back, I think is what set me back. I mean, the amount of time I missed then, having that, like ruined the 2006 season for me at South Carolina, was devastating. So, anyways, like this guy was at that same health clinic there, and I can only like speculate. I'm clearly speculating here, knowing like the way relationships are with doctors and athletes, and then what happens, the disillusion that happens once you're no longer in the league anymore, you're not a priority anymore, and then also the reality of like that this clear guy clearly had mental health issues, right? We know. I mean, there's no other way to describe like like coming undone like this other than that. And there was clearly like a vendetta he had. He didn't just go to like some mall or go to some public place. He like went after like a target. So we don't know the details yet, but I think it's fair to at least assume in this case, given the reason they knew each other, although they did live close to each other. So let's don't completely rule that out that it could have been some strange interpersonal thing. But he was a patient. That has been confirmed of this guy. And if anyone wants to fact check me on that, or has but from what I've seen a couple different sources now that he was a patient.
Yep.
All right, and so that you have to wonder, keep an eye out. I'll just say for you know a, any sort of evidence that's building when people go back through forensics of like anger and rage over like maybe his healthcare benefits had maxed out. I mean, his number of years of accrued service in the league. How many accrued years did he get? Because I know to get life, to get the healthcare benefits to get a pension, you got to be up. I think at least like 5 years. So he went total accrued years service 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, he should have benefits. I mean, he got 6 years of accrued service. I love how you say service. I just said that kind of uncritically. That's kind of an interesting term there. But nonetheless, it's like be on the lookout for like healthcare. I think potentially, possibly playing a role in this motive, and I think it's something we'll have to come back to because, like I said, we don't have that kind of knowledge right now. We are speculating, but I'm also disclosing that's what I'm doing, and I'm speculating. So, if anyone has any questions though for me, no, Max, Ben, Aaron, all them hold it down. What they've done with, and I mean, we got to talk more. I got to talk to Max. We've had discussions before about possibly adding Redspin Sports and just as kind of like the sports sort of anti-imperial podcast of the Gray Zone and like doing that. But I mean, Max and I talked. We both think it was like best to try to, for me to like kind of sort of prove that this could work and that this could, yeah, you're right, and that we could kind of get this rolling and have some kind of consistency with it. And I think bringing Justin on board was a huge part of that with his like not just good politics but tech expertise that maybe Mike and I could have some areas that has some room for improvement in, and that's so none. I think that we could get to a point where you'll see that here, in the time frame, maybe, I'm not going to speculate on that, but in terms of like connecting the, with the. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, man. I mean, Max has been a huge mentor to me. I mean, you hear me mention him a lot, but I mean, it all really goes back to when I was done playing football, and I sort of like happened upon becoming president of Students for Justice in Palestine at Florida State. It wasn't. It was like a lot of the seniors the year before were leaving. I had a lot of connections with like Dream Defenders and the group that was like the primary group that Michael Sampson was like part of, and that was doing a lot. That occupied the Capitol, demanding a repeal of Stand Your Ground for 31 days, and in the summer of would have been 2013, I guess, because it was like after the 2012 murder, Zimmerman's murder of Trayvon Martin. But that wasn't just about that issue; it transcended that issue at that point. And so we wanted to make the connections between Palestine and Black national oppression and Black liberation struggles and throughout America, but especially in the South, the heart of the Black Belt nation. When I say nation, I mean like people with a shared. An oppressed nation is a group of people that have a shared culture, language, experience, that their culture ripped away like by violence, and there's definitely that meets all those criteria in the American South, and of course there's a diaspora of that too because of the Great Migration to places like Chicago, Detroit, Newark, New Jersey, LA, all over the place, but. AOC, sent the feds after a Twitter user. No, well, I'll have to ask you about that here in a second, Neil.
Rania. Yeah, I saw. Rania hyped that tonight.
Oh yeah, so Neil, if you want to see some street cred, you can find me. I'm also blacklisted on what's it called, the Canary.
Canary. Yep.
Yeah, it's like so. I'm. This is like one of the prouder things I have here. What is it? Canary mission. Let's see. There we go. Let's show. I'm gonna put my badge of honor up here for the good folks, for our patrons here. Y'all should feel honored here. This is one of the proudest moments of my life, actually. They were calling my employer, like, repeatedly, like saying, like, oh, you employ an anti-Semite, Nathaniel Wallace, you didn't spell his name right, has demonized Israel and supported anti-Israel agitators on social media. Before I explain this, like I became the president sort of as just like a play it for a year in order to help the group kind of like get some younger people in it and then and really recharge. And I'm happy to say that's what did happen. And I moved on after a year. So, but during that year, Max was on his speaking tour for Goliath, Life and Loathing in Greater Israel. I had just gotten back from the LA area. My brother it was a senior year. They won the national championship in football against Auburn at the Rose Bowl. And a week later, Max is coming in town. We had never met. I picked him up at the airport. He's used to seeing I guess it's fair to say a 6'6" former like college player wearing like their football like gear and stuff at the airport in a Chevy Tahoe. It was not his usual like pickup when he'd be traveling, going to visit SJP chapters to speak on Goliath. So he ended up staying at my place, and we just and then I ended up giving him a ride to the University of Florida the next day when they kind of weren't able to follow through with the transportation arrangements. But that was great. We got to go through and see it, show him a lot of the Panhandle, talk a lot about a lot of that history, ethnic cleansing, making connections between the apartheid Israel and the American South, and it was so anyways, he invited me up to New York City where he's living, got to know a lot of people through there. One thing leads to another. But yeah, here you go. So this is like one of my biggest badge of honor right here, So it says, as of February 8, 2018, Wallace's LinkedIn listed him as an English language arts and literature teacher at Dr. Ronald E. McNair Academic High School in Jersey City. Says he's graduated, blah, 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 demonizing Israel. Evidently, I tweeted a graphic that depicted Israel's Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu building a wall with the blood and bodies of Palestinians as brick and mortar. So that's I think that's pretty
Yeah,
awesome
yeah,
actually. Like I mean
yeah.
that's
Yeah,
what
but
he
that's what the
does.
canary does, man. Like that's
Yeah.
their MO. Saying awesome shit is terrible. Like that's
Yeah,
what they
yeah,
do.
yeah. Absolutely, man. So Sage Steel sucks. Yeah, we know that. So let's see here, and let's see what did Justin say. Oh, nice, nice, nice. So, anyways, I want to pay homage to the War Nerd though to kind of come full circle real quick, because
Yeah.
I'm still like super excited about that. You won't find many pictures of John Dolan, Gary Bretcher. He doesn't really like being photographed and video stuff much, but that's beyond the point. It's like, anyways, Raider fandom. I'm really excited to hear what y'all think when you get a chance to hear it. It will by next week. I'll take it beyond the paywall. I kind of have to put it up on there because to keep doing these and the amount of time we're spending and the amount of extra
Yep.
rent I'm gonna have to be paying to this new place. I could be doing, I could be teaching kids in East Asia English, which is something online right now as a second job that I'm going to be doing. And it's like there's a huge demand for it. It's you get online
Yep.
and some parent pays you and you just like work with like help it. Which is crazy. So it's not like I speak their language. It's like I get they're
Yeah.
expected to
Yeah.
have like a good enough understanding of like just basic communication that then we can work on building up vocab like so anyways, I'm not trying to like look man it's hard times or whatever. I love doing this, all right? It's not
Yeah.
never about money. It's just about literally being able to sustain this like
Yeah.
long term, and justify keep doing it. So I want to get
Yep.
into real quick, just paying homage then by showing one of my favorite the combinations of I think football can be poetic. We talk about the negatives of it sometimes, and poetry in itself is something that it's important. This is something the War Nerd talks about that. Before World War One, poetry was like militaristic. It was pro-war, right? It glorified war. It's like the ultimate expression of like toughness, of manhood, of like standing up for
Going back to
something you
Homer,
yeah,
like,
absolutely. So I just want to make sure we lay that out there. Everyone needs to be clear about that. That wasn't until the dissolution of post World War One where you have this like, just like it's just malaise. I mean, just like the death, the number of like young men, and then you have so many women that are like growing up and like can't start families with. It's like you had a huge gender imbalance as a result of that. You had and then the men that did survive. And you had female casualties too. They weren't allowed to fight in the war, but they were like out on the front lines, like in nursing roles, and absolutely suffered immensely. But I'm just pointing. It's just it destabilized a whole generation in ways that I don't think the ruling class really even understood. Like they didn't know what they were messing with at all. Then like it's the gothic, macabre like social effects that rippled out from that is unreal, and it changed the whole game. So, but the Oakland Raiders he talks about like and what they represent that they were like the whole pirate symbology was not something that was super popular. There were no Tampa Bay Buccaneers back then, but they did
mhm.
sort of capture the hearts and minds and of like the Hunter S. Thompson types, like the people that like maybe do bad but are not bad at heart. The people that and it's like gets at the notion of like what makes someone bad. It's like who's to blame for like the quote social ills, and it's like is it these individuals that are like rational actors dealing cards from fucked up circumstances? Are they like bad? I mean, sure, like if you get robbed by somebody, you're not really going to care about like, oh, they had such a terrible childhood, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
but so let's be real about that. But when we're not, personally immersed in something, we have critical thinking capacities. It's like the Raiders kind of do represent the NFL fan base is most multinational. I mean, I sound like I'm like a Raiders. I'm not a Raiders fan, but I do find it interesting, fascinating sociologically. They also they were detested by the NFL establishment. Pete Rozelle, who the War Nerd, I'll give away one hint. You got to hear. He makes the comparison to Henry Kissinger, the salesman.
Yeah.
All right, so and you can hear like I'll tease that, but that was, I think, it was fascinating to say the least. I keep overusing that word, by the way, but to get to the whole Hunter S. Thompson stuff, I mean, Hunter S. Thompson, you think of like a thing like Fear and Loathing. It was like when they filmed that, it was essentially all improv. It was like they knew the situation, right? But it was like get in the situation for the scene, know what the character's feeling, know your character intimately, and that's sort of enact on it. And like, so Thompson embedded himself with the Raiders, and like Davis was like skeptical. He did like Thompson's, notorious for like just his drug binges of like, their epic proportion. But his being embedded with the Raiders, like, it was almost like he felt like Raiders fans were kind of like as Dolan says, like we were Hunter Thompson's like, kind of children essentially. We were the ones that like when you talk about literary children, so to speak. And that's different, man. It contrast. I think it's one of those interesting things. It's like we talked about Al Davis too, and how somebody. Well, I'm not trying to romanticize Davis too much. I do think it's fascinating that someone that could be a coach who grew up like in a working class, like Jewish neighborhood in Massachusetts, like that could never even be possible now. I mean, the level of capital that's required to like get a franchise, and that just highlights on a larger societal level, like how much the American dream, quote unquote, has become a complete mirage, right? As much as it ever was real. I mean, but for like white males and a big segment of the American population, it was a thing in the 50s and 60s, hence the nostalgia. It just wasn't a thing, in an egalitarian sense. So I'm going to play this poem here because in honor of the war nerd, and because I think it's interesting how even amongst football, the violent game, sometimes think back before World War One, poetry was often used as a way of building up and you think of children growing up, and you read like the poems, the glorious nights and the conquest, and and the things, and so you come from that different era before there was global transit and telecommunicate. It's like you had the ability to have information travel around the world. It's like people. It was just a totally different reality, and I think that like the Raiders sort of hit at something that when we live in this like world that's like in neoliberalism, it's like postmodern type stuff, where nothing has any meaning anymore. People are craving for meaning. They're searching for meaning, and when they lack that at their jobs, and they don't feel that like the world like has value for them outside of just like whatever they can do for some capitalists to like help produce profits for them and make them, I guess, willing to want to pay them some wages to just merely survive on. It's like that's an alienating existence for the vast majority of people. So these fan communities, it's important not to get, I feel, too like cynical and making fun of like sports to the point where like we don't, these fans need to be made aware and like and appreciate what athletes go through to produce that meaning. And if they don't, then sorry, you're a jackass. But at the same time, like it's not, there's athletic competition and people wanting to see who can push the body to the farthest and the further and achieve great feats, and in a team context, like work together towards a common goal. It's been something that's been with us for ever since the dawn of time, really.
And and the amount of people that can judge it but not look at it still as labor issue, not look at it still as management, ownership, management, employee, and they separate from that. And there's no reason to separate from that because that's what it is.
Yeah, man, because it's not about like any labor struggle. There's going to be people in any union, if you're in a union, that are like you don't like. This doesn't mean like there's contradictions where I've had like people that were in education that were like in a principal position or vice president, like and on specific instances they were completely right, and some teachers were completely wrong, especially issues like race. Sometimes we had a principal that had good racial politics, and there were certain teachers that didn't want any kind of discussion. I mean, so it's like those are the kind of contradictions that exist under capitalism. I mean, it doesn't mean though that I'm going to go and walk through a picket line when we have a strike and side with my principal over like our struggle. That's the problem, is that people get so into this like idea of like we have to be completely consistent. Like, no, I'm biased on behalf of the working class against capital, right? And I'm not afraid to say that, nor should anybody that actually wants to win.
And it's absurd that the top argument against any kind of player, any kind of athlete fight back towards ownership is always, you get paid to play a kid's game, and they're always bitching about, what is it, 3% of every team makes the obscene money, and then there's the middle money, and then there's everybody else who comes together, who makes a league minimum. And sure, is that league minimum $400,000 a year? Yes.
Yeah.
But owner makes billions, and that mid-level person works 3 years on average. What's the average NFL career? We
About 3
we
years.
only hear about the Tom Brady's. We only hear about the people with longevity. But the average career is 3 years.
And that's
So-
not including guys who get cut like their first year. That's only if you actually play
exactly.
a game, if you
So-
play in a regular season game.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this idea that it's not a labor struggle is absolute bullshit. But yet, go to any Twitter argument right now. Go to any Twitter headline. Like, go to any blue checkmark fucking mass media, ESPN, anything headline, and the top comments you'll see, and maybe they're top comments because they're also getting ratioed, which is good to see. But like the top comments are always somebody who's like, "Hey, asshole, I would give my left arm." Cool. I'm sorry you were born 5'8" and untalented. Like that's usually where those comments come from, but like they're still the top comments. And that mentality, we need to combat that. And we need to combat that. And combating that is a form of solidarity that we need to have. Because it's still rampant, and it's probably rampant if those of us who are watching right now, I know my own father's this way. Like, it comes from that mentality, right? Which is bootstraps and bullshit and blah, 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 blah. They get paid to play a kid's game, blah, blah, blah. And there's real, like, actual data we can fight back with. And that is the fact that, again, the average career is 2 to 3 years, and then they're done. Basketball's the tricky one. Their rosters are the smallest, which is why you see more guaranteed. Like, first of all, their union fought for guaranteed money. That's awesome. Second, they carry the smallest roster, which is why you'll see a guy who scores 5 points a game, 3 assists, and maybe 7 rebounds. You'll see them get a guaranteed deal that's way bigger than, say, your backup running back. Say that Justin Jackson's going to receive. You'll see that. You'll see a 6th man, 7th man, 8th man in the NBA get better money, but they carry smaller rosters. And again, that dude has a really good chance of being gone next year. And then what? They pass through college. They pass through the educational system that is a major athlete, and what they're going to deal with, and what they're going to either get fixed for them, whether they asked for or not, or didn't finish, don't finish, they leave early. So what are these people left with? Think about the battle we all fight as non-professional athletes. I was at a D1 school. I was an athlete. Nate was at a D1 school. He was an athlete, but like we didn't go pro. Like there was no money
but we
beyond
went
that.
Something else.
So,
we went pro in something other than sports.
So we're still talking about sports.
Anyways, yeah, we are.
But like, you see what I'm saying? Like,
because I want to play this poem, man, from the NFL.
Yeah. So it is these players that maybe though they made it, they're thrust right back in to the same world that we all exist in. And the only thing that they can try to bank capital on is the fact that they were a former athlete. There's not a lot of market in that. So again, this is a labor struggle.
And what other professions do you actually have your body like used to that level, like where your body is that central? I mean, I know that like mining, of course, whatever, but it's like that literally every single aspect, and it's not just like the actual like labor. It's like everything like it's performance in like a finesse way too, and being able to like shoot baskets or to like have the kind of wiggle you need to break open a big run, when you don't have a lot of running room. It's like all these different things. Let's check out this example of NFL poetry. I want to hear what y'all think. And it's the quintessential poem of the Raiders of the 70s. This is in honor of John Dolan, aka Gary Bretcher, the War Nerd, Raider Cannon Dan on the Radio War Nerd community, Mark Ames, and others who have I mean, lost their team in the last year too to Las Vegas, and for the second time, mind you, since the Raiders moved to Los Angeles from Oakland and were in LA from '82 to '94. All right, so keep that in mind too. And then we're back in Oakland from what '95 to 19. But without further ado, here is The Autumn Wind is a Pirate. And I hit the StreamYard button.
The autumn wind is a pirate, blustering in from sea. With a rollicking song, he sweeps along, swaggering boisterously. His face is weather-beaten. He wears a hooded sash. With a silver hat about his head and a bristling black mustache. He growls boisterously. His face is weather-beaten. He wears a hooded sash. With a silver hat about his head and a bristling black mustache. He growls as he storms the country, a villain big and bold. And the trees all shake and quiver and quake as he robs them of their gold. The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just...
I don't know if y'all noticed here, but that's O.J. Simpson getting smacked down, I think. Let's see.
Gold. The autumn wind is a raider.
Boom. Down goes O.J. Down goes O.J. Orenthal James, I should say.
Pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won.
Alright, so and the other part was going to show you just a quick trailer actually, I think is interesting, of the 30 for 30 ESPN put out. And I'd be curious to see what some of y'all think about the war, not literal war, but constant war, in figurative sense, between Pete Rozelle and the National Football League and Al Davis and the AFL, the American Football League, which was essentially forced to merge with the NFL following the 1968 season. So in '69, I believe, and so yeah, it would have been Super Bowl IV was the first Super Bowl where you had the NFC and AFC, and the AFC was made up of the AFC East and the AFC West were the old AFL, and that would be, so basically that would be the Miami Dolphins, Buffalo Bills, New York Jets, New England Patriots, Kansas City Chiefs, Oakland Raiders, San Diego Chargers, now Los Angeles Chargers, and Denver Broncos. So, anyways, let's see. I would love to hear what y'all think real quick of this, and I'll go ahead and play it right quick here. Just the trailer for this 30 for 30, and because it gets at a lot of what we've been talking about, the whole that the old guard and kind of like this Al Davis figure coming in. So continued shout. This is the trailer for Al Davis versus the NFL.
Born enemies.
Oakland Raiders president Al Davis.
I turned the Raiders into the finest organization in sports. 8 division titles, 7 conference title games.
And NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle.
The best commissioner of any sport in that time.
Do you really believe that? I know it.
Pete Rozelle and my father, they were the yin and the yang.
My differences with Al developed over business matters.
All right,
And my father.
let's go back real quick here, because like, Justin, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Just like, think Madison Avenue, like Mad Men, just like total salesman, like consensus builder. It's all about he's a harbinger to like that whole, like, I think even like Obama idea, just getting the smart people all around a table and just building consensus, hating
Best and the brightest
people that are right. So it's like think of Pete Rozelle as sort of like a early just embodiment of that. All right. And remember,
Believe that? I know it.
I mean, look at that. Look at this laugh. If this doesn't, like, just this guy right here, the teeth, like he's looking at you at the camera and literally saying, ha, 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 fuck you, you little prole. I mean, it's just like, you know, I'm a hunter and you're weak. I'm the alpha, you're the beta. I know how to win, baby. Even though that's what Al Davis likes to say. But he just, that face, I hate that face, man. I don't know why. It's like, it just sort of exudes everything about the phoniness of post-World War II optimism and just sort of a, you know, consumerism, just like a total and complete like merging of your identity with the idea of consumerism as an ideology, essentially.
Pete Rozelle and my father, they were the yin and the yang.
My differences were...
That was Tom Flores, by the way, the first Latino head coach in the NFL. If you were... Yeah, there he is. Tom Flores to win a Super Bowl, too. All right, there's Davis.
My differences with Al developed over business matters.
The NFL violated antitrust laws by blocking the Raiders' move to Los Angeles.
This could have been settled if it were not for personal animosities.
Al Davis seemed to be your genuine enemy.
Every legal attack undermines the league, and that would include the commissioner.
The trial will decide whether football's Oakland Raiders may move to Los Angeles, which could influence the whole geography of professional sports.
There's only one thing that matters is who wins. You have to win. We're going to take what we want.
Al Davis is a gutter fighter.
He's got an outlaw.
Al Davis will do anything to beat you.
Just win, baby.
Holy Toledo!
This is the dawn of a new era. The Las Vegas Raiders.
No one saw coming except me.
I don't know. So, what do you think, Justin? You think piqued your interest enough or not? Not really.
Absolutely. I mean, the class should at play like at that point, right? And it's like it's awesome how you brought up earlier about how, you know, like, did Al Davis become the bourgeoisie owner class? Yeah, he did. But he came from something that wasn't. He battled an institution. And that could not happen now. Mm-hmm. Another Al Davis will not happen.
Right. And he also, he did become it, but like on a much smaller scale. I mean, I mean, it's not even really comparable wealth-wise to like the Bob Crafts of the world, or the Miami Dolphins owner, who's just Jeffrey Ross, who's just an absolute Stephen Ross, one of the worst people imaginable. I think like we're getting late. We're gonna have to hold it. Mike's not been here. We're gonna have to take a break until next week on our owners. I'm not as I could go on and just start riffing on a bunch of them. But next week, I'm happy to announce Dan Kovalik will be joining us to give us a breakdown of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Dan has written a number of books. He's worked with Oliver Stone quite a bit. His latest book, everyone should go get, is No More War here. It says how the West violates international law by using humanitarian intervention to advance economic and strategic interests. It says Oliver Stone writes on the cover, Kovalik helps cut through the Orwellian lies and disassembling which make so-called humanitarian intervention possible. Abby Martin's got a blurb on the back, so does Danny Haifong, and friend of the show, good friend. Actually, Danny and I have plans to be at Madison Square Garden on May 16th to watch his Celtics take on the Knicks. Since I'll be fully vaccinated as of Sunday myself, and unlike Texas Rangers, we can talk about who had no sort of policy. I mean, where you. Unlike here in New York, I mean, to go to Madison Square Garden, Barclays Center, Yankee Stadium, you have to have either your fully vaxxed card or your a negative proof of a negative COVID test. But the Texas Rangers, they do their own thing, right?
I mean,
So,
even Missouri did better. Their homeowner. So
Yeah.
I don't know if we have anyone on the stream that's part of Cardinals Nation, but their home opener was tonight, and they cut it to 30%. So even Missouri. I mean, and Missouri's not famous for doing a lot of forward thinking. Even they limited.
Come on,
and
forward thinking Missouri, right?
Hey, by the way, I know we're closing out, Nate. I know we're closing out, but I got to ask you something because I figured out.
Started, buddy.
Yeah, I found out something today, so I'm sorry. I'm going to put you on the spot. We haven't talked about this. We didn't pre-talk about this. I'm going to put you on the spot about Jacksonville real quick because I found out today for the first time that the baseball player I've hated more than any other baseball player that I've ever hated is from Jacksonville.
Who's that?
And that is Daniel Murphy.
Oh, I can't even begin to tell you like what I'm about. So my cousin's my cousin's his professor right now. Like
okay.
I can't tell you what school right now because I'm worried that you're gonna like
it's all good
finding a way to troll. But yeah, so my cousin who used to got his PhD at UVA and is a history professor like in Jacksonville at a couple different schools actually. He teaches classes at. But yeah, he's got Daniel Murphy as one of his history students, and what he we weren't talking about it, and I don't think he was even aware of any of this stuff. But was it like that class? It's like online, and it's like really terrible. But he said that like Murphy's like the only one that's actually really engaged and participating in the class. I just can't believe like how crazy that. Yeah, so he went to my rival high school actually. Bishop
okay.
I went to Bulls. Yeah.
Okay.
So go ahead and tell people why he's so bad.
Yeah. So real quick context. I mean, baseball has no shortage of just absolute right-wing Christian. Like, let's be honest. Like, baseball has no shortage of that guy. Baseball has no shortage of that guy who needs to, promote country, church, all that shit. And Daniel Murphy was no different. And I always looked at Daniel Murphy as just, okay, he's another white Christian ball player that just has to push all these, and again, I'm not bashing on Christianity, but let's say it's the more GOP variety of Christianity. It's maybe the church that like promoted the anti-Muslim.
Evangelical though, because like
he's evangelical.
Yeah. All right.
He's evangelical though. Yeah. So
gotcha.
Real quick, let's just flash forward to 2015. Daniel Murphy is at an event with Billy Beane. Now, Billy Beane was the first baseball player to come out. Billy Beane came out after he played. Billy Beane didn't come out while he played, but Billy Beane came out after he played. And I think a lot of people that were at that event were kind of like struck by the fact that Billy Beane came out. Daniel Murphy got a microphone shoved in his face, and Daniel Murphy said the most vile thing I can possibly think of, which is what put him on my number one hated baseball player list. And that is that he came out and said he didn't disagree with Billy Beane's lifestyle. He disagreed that Billy Beane was gay. So think about that from that perspective of he's literally saying gay people are not gay because that's Daniel Murphy's belief.
Well,
it is a rights denial on such an extreme level.
Well, it's like that whole idea that they think they're actually like in their mind, a lot of those Christians, like they think that's like the way they can like show love while like hating the behavior. And of course it explains also like the whole phenomenon of like gay conversion therapy. If you ever saw that crazy documentary like Jesus Camp or whatever about like that bizarro world in like Missouri, and then they had that camp up in like North Dakota in the summer and stuff. Whatever. It's like, I mean, Murphy, it's like he's on the radio and sometimes in Jacksonville on the morning show on 1010XL. The James Coleman's actually on now, who a friend of the show we've had on a couple of times. I know from Florida State football, but that station's making bank, by the way. My dad said he literally can't even listen anymore now because the level of ads has just proliferated so much that it's like, so I gotta talk to Jim Coleman about that, man. He's stacking bread on the back of like my dad, although their show is not quite as bad. Like it's the daytime, like primetime shows in the morning.
Yeah.
I guess some drive time, but anyways, like it's
It's
yeah,
just
that,
yeah. It
you're
is.
right.
It
No,
is.
it's
I have had disdain for Daniel Murphy for so long, but it wasn't until today that I learned that he was from Jacksonville.
Well, and what about the random coinky dink of like my first cousin actually, like my just like is teaching him right now, like in 20th century history of the American South. I think it is.
Okay.
Right, so like,
I mean, I like part of me thinks that Daniel Murphy's trying to take that class so he can like talk up like, anti-union points. Like he's going to glean.
So.
He's going to glean from it what he's going to take from it. Like end of story.
I need to talk to my cousin about it because it was just my Aunt Carolyn that was like told me about that. So I gotta like get his take on it. He could be. It's very possible to be like the engaging it. Even if it's like when you're a professor, like even if you don't agree with a certain student, if you're in a class where like no one says anything, it's like one of your favorite people is going to be the one who's actually going to like help like you not just be the one awkwardly standing up there while everyone's like not interested. So.
Yeah,
I mean, my cousin, knowing that he would be bored with Murphy's, statements and politics. And I remember the New York media jumped all over him for that stuff. I remember
it's funny. It's funny because like he was the first, after he said that, everybody then obviously wanted a soundbite from him, and like Daniel Murphy's response was to say, I'm going to stick to sports. So like he built the narrative for everybody else for like the shut up and dribble shit, because he was the first to self-ascribe to the idea of I'm just going to shut up and dribble. Like after he said that, at least Daniel Murphy, I guess, had the wherewithal to realize that brought a lot of shit on him. But like it was one of those things where he was just like, all right, I'm gonna play baseball after this. Like you get no more sound bites on my politics. But like it's one of those things where like it's a microcosm of a larger problem, right? Which is if you just simply bury your head in the sand, this is the kind of shit you get, right? It's easy for Daniel Murphy to be like, gay people aren't real. They're like wizards. They're like anything else. They're not actually real. They believe it, but it's not real. And that's his belief, just like you can then easily take that down the rabbit hole and go, well, indigenous rights don't matter. Palestinian rights don't matter. Iraqi lives don't matter. Iranian lives don't matter. Cuban lives don't matter. None of this matters. They believe it. Isn't that adorable? But it's not actually true. So anyway, it's just like a little microcosm into the mindset of, somebody that had a microphone shoved in his face and just so casually said, gay people aren't real. Anyway, that's...
So no, I hear you, man. So like the few things real quick, as I was just telling Neil there about like college baseball. If you're drafted out of high school, like you can go and start playing right away. Now, if you're drafted high, even though you get paid like jack shit in the minors, you could get a huge signing bonus though. All right, so you could actually there's certain guys on minor league teams that have like nice whips and like are like living a nice life. And they have a big signing bonus. Yeah. And then so you had, you had that, and then you had the whole or if you do go to college, I was just about to say, you do have to wait for 3 more years before you can enter the draft again.
But at the same time, this is a whole hole in the NCAA's and like amateurism bullshit that they pull. So let's take a guy like Russell Wilson. Let's take a guy like Jake Locker.
Yeah.
These are guys who got huge, drafted at 17, 18 into baseball, and then used that money to pay for college. Jake Locker wasn't a scholarship at the University of Washington. You know why he didn't take up a scholarship at the University of Washington? Because he paid for his own school. But how did he pay for it? Because he was drafted in the MLB. That's a huge hole in the NCAA's bullshit, and they write their own bylaws that allow that to be possible. But now think about everything we've talked about in the last few weeks, right, of what college football players go through, the money, how they have to account for it. we had a guest on a few weeks ago talk about how he had to like prove to the NCAA that he was just visiting a friend, right? And that it wasn't like, I'm not actually paying, or they're not actually paying, or I'm not paying for their lunch, all this bullshit. But yet Jake Locker gets to go be the quarterback at the University of Washington, not take a scholarship because he uses MLB draft money to pay for his college. And that's above board. So yeah, the NCAA is a huge hole when it comes to baseball. Hockey's the same way. Hockey is the exact same way. You can be drafted out of high school, then go play in college. That money's still in your account. That money is still there. And that doesn't somehow affect your amateurism. But yet, you know, when I was a track athlete, Nate, when you played football, had any of us sold anything, we would have had to have proven how we were selling personal property and not something else, because maybe we would have made $500 selling a bed from our dorm room. It's insane.
You either
but yet they get to
that. You either risk not this, because it's a different sport. Yeah, that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
So
but like it blows the whole thing out of the water. Like you get $1 million from the Yankees, use that to pay for your college education. Don't take a scholarship, but yet you're the starting quarterback. Anyway, amateurism. You collected money.
It's a fraud, man. Yeah, absolutely. We know it. And you're right. That is a really good illustration of it. Like I was just telling Neil, he asked the question, they have special bullshit for the NFL. In fairness, I will say the NFL, like, it is sort of like a very like violent game. I think that the 3 years removed from high school policy is actually a good thing. I think that if you start having, although I don't know, I mean, in the same sense, that's like the level of
Maurice Claret
and the violation. I mean, yeah. I guess I don't know. I kind of take that back, actually. I mean, I don't think it's like, generally speaking, like the healthiest idea, but at the same time, I don't support preventing people like Claret from trying to enter the draft. So I guess if you look at it that way, I would have to say that I would advise people against it. You know, if it was talking to people, I don't think. But I don't think you should be barred from doing so. How about that? That's I amend my take. That was a stupid.
And that issue, and Maurice Claret was a very unique situation to where what happens when you're a freshman, you're really good at what you do, you are one of the best at what you do, and then the NCAA bans you. What are you supposed to do? They basically screw your career because now you can't. Right? Like what Mike Williams did a few years after that's different. That's Mike Williams just being like that's the USC receiver. I know there's a lot of Mike Williams in the NFL, so you got to clarify that. But like what he did was,
remember him well. Yeah.
Yep. He just wanted to leave, and that's different. But like Maurice Claret was banned. What do you do when the NCAA just doesn't like your lifestyle, doesn't like your point of view, doesn't like who you are, and they kick you out, but yet you still have to wait 2 years? And look at how that turned out for Maurice Claret, when at the same time, all of his court cases, I think, really proved the point. Who are you protecting? The dude's in good shape. The dude's healthy. If he wants to go get hit by somebody older than him, he can go get hit by someone older than him. It's an arbitrary rule in that regard when you're banned from the NCAA. And that's kind of the crux of why his case is different, right? If Mike Williams just wanted to leave early, and that's I get that. You want to circumvent, but what do you do if you're Maurice Claret and you get banned? You're banned from this. You can no longer participate.
It's outrageous. I mean, it's disgusting, and it's a
when again Jake Locker can get drafted and then go play college football.
I mean, yeah, it's grotesquely absurd. So let's look at this article here real quick. We do need to get wrapping. Who is Phillip Adams? All right, so he is from Rock Hill, South Carolina, same area where Jadeveon Clowney came out of. One of the biggest recruits of all time in high school football in the class of 2011, who then is in the NFL now. Is been trying to get a big contract. Was with the Seahawks last year. To be with the Texans.
Still a free agent right now.
Yeah, there's Stephon Gilmore came out of there too. With the New England Patriots out of Rock Hill. Rock Hill's put out a lot of good players, but so it says New York County. So like the governor killed himself after killing 5 people, including a prominent doctor. And this is from WSOC TV. Which is a local station in Charlotte. All right, so and they get Charlotte news, being right on the border there with Charlotte's right on the border with South Carolina. It's in North Carolina. But so anyways, including a prominent doctor in South Carolina Wednesday evening was former NFL player Philip Adams. So the AP, spoke on this anonymity. So we can just go on. He killed himself at midnight with a .40 caliber weapon. We know that. Going down, he was 32, born in July 20, 1988, Rock Hill. Graduated Rock Hill High, went to South Carolina State, played corner. He was drafted in the 7th round. I mean, which is, coming from HBCU, it's impressive to get drafted there by the 49ers. Played 15 games that year with 13 tackles, one defended pass, and then before brief stints with the Patriots, Seahawks, Raiders, and Jets. Finished his professional career with the Falcons at 15. So he reportedly suffered a severe ankle injury during the second to last game of the 49ers 2010 season and 2 concussions over the course of 3 games in the 2012 season with the Raiders. At a news conference Thursday afternoon, York County Sheriff Kevin Tolson said Adams was issued several minor traffic citations in the county in February. He also said Adams had some pending criminal charges in Mecklenburg County, which is in North Carolina, which is where the county Charlotte's in, from 2016. Tolson did not go into detail about the pending charges, so a Rock Hill School District spokesperson told Channel 9 that Adams' mother is a former longtime educator in the school district. Sad. So Adams' first grade teacher and family friend, who did not want to be identified, told Channel 9 she's distraught. I mean, it's not surprising. Yeah, of course, he was a special kid, blah, blah, blah. So it's clear that, people growing up, he wasn't some, hard, in your face type, kid that was, oppositional and had issues, it doesn't seem like. But, of course, this is anecdotal. So, anyway, Scott Casterling was Adams' NFL agent for his entire 5-year career. And he, of course, just wants to be I just want people to know he wasn't that way. He was the guy you like to be around, right? So again, it's one of these stories of someone who changes drastically, snaps. I think it's fair to conclude that without saying we know what caused it specifically. The York County Coroner's Office said that Dr. Robert Leslie, 70, and his wife Barbara Leslie, 69, were pronounced dead at the scene, along with grandchildren Ada Leslie, 9 years old, and Noah Leslie, 5 years old. So Tolson said 32-year-old Adams broke into Leslie's home Wednesday afternoon and shot and killed Leslie, his wife Barbara, and 2 of their grandkids. He is also accused of shooting 2 HVAC techs who were working at the home. 38-year-old James Lewis was found shot to death outside, and the other technician was hospitalized with serious gunshot wounds. So, according to the York County Sheriff's Office. So Tolson says Adams left evidence at the scene. They quickly developed him as a suspect. Clearly, I don't think he was even really wanting to hide it. Obviously, if he left something so obvious there, but the investigations are going. So that's what we know. But there actually is some interesting anecdotes there. You actually have some quotes from teachers, his agent speaking up. Nothing. Obviously, no one can suspect something like this happening, but the injury. I don't know. Well, I want to see how his career ended, and if injury was that played a big role in that. And that's something we need to really look into, because the ties and investigate what the ties are. How much they live near each other, but also the relationship between them medically and patient doctor is something that's I think going to give a lot of insight into what went on here. If there was some kind of malpractice or perceived malpractice. Or perhaps his insurance was no good anymore, right? And who knows? I am speculating now, but all these things are possibilities, and then there's also of course the mental health aspect with
what his dad said. What his dad said is huge.
Can you tell the listener people what his dad said?
Yeah, his dad just said that football damaged him. Football did damage, and football changed his son. It is.
So we should let the
again we don't know, but
Yeah. So let's actually.
He was
real quick here, So, and then we got to close here momentarily. Actually, we don't have to necessarily, but let's see. It's a good thing about live streams if people are up for it. So this is just like us hanging out here, but also kind of trying to be focused on some stuff that matters here. So here we go. This is his father, about 80 seconds of Phillip Adams. Can't imagine what he's going through right now. So let's hear what he says.
Just tell me what you know, what you can say, sir.
Well, I can say that he's a good kid. He was a good kid, and he, I think the football messed him up. You know, I don't think he ever did anybody any harm. So all I can tell you, we pray for the family that, and I used to be my doctor a long time ago. And I know they were good folks down there. I don't know what happened, and we're gonna keep them in our prayers.
Amen.
And y'all keep us in your prayers too.
Absolutely.
It's just hard. This is just like, I mean, you're just that now you're gonna have to just deal with like you can't really even grieve, because if you show like like emotion for your son, people are gonna get offended that like, oh, you're eulogizing like a killer or whatever, and it's like I always hate when people are like that. I mean, it's like this. I mean, it's tragedy all the way around. It gets into the idea that we gotta like people have to have a clearly defined like encapsulation or embodiment of evil and noble victim, and that's like sort of what the mind searches for and how we're sort of framed to perceive like tragedy and react to it, or at least the media cycle kind of conditions us to. So let's check the rest of this.
Is this he?
Well, he just moved from Fort Mill.
No, I mean, was this where the police came last night? Yeah. And I heard that they got you guys out of the house.
They did.
And just, I know it's terrible what happened, but just like you said, you raised your son, and he
gotta hate reporters.
A good man. Just could you ever imagine? Was he in a lot of pain? Do you think?
Well, he didn't talk much, and he didn't bother nobody.
I don't think it's bad. I mean, you gotta like ask the question. I mean, he said.
I mean, I get that. I get that, but like just the idea of like it's his father. And we all, like, if you read the reports, you know that they traced him back to the house and they removed his parents, and then they tried to talk him down, and that's when he committed suicide.
Right.
Sort of like you have a father in this situation who's dealing with this, and you literally ask the question, are you one of the ones that was taken from the house? Are you fucking kidding? Of course.
Oh yeah, I wasn't even like
that one where you're like, are you serious? Like, that's the question you're asking right now.
Well, clearly it just highlights your point, right, about the material incentives within capitalist news to try to get the most salacious type. The idea of like what would be so bad about just like letting him wait and then talk to the police about that kind of stuff when they're doing the investigation.
Yeah, it's
in terms of like.
But we gotta put this dad on the spot. Like, he just lost his son. Like, I get that. I get that the son.
Because he's already got to talk to the detectives and everything, so why?
Yeah.
It just, what's the point of like, I see what you're saying. It's like,
Yeah. I mean, asking if he was in pain's one thing. I have no problem with that. It's the clarifying that you were one of the ones evacuated from the house. What the fuck is that?
Yeah. Like, that is weird, man.
That's enough, okay?
Oh, I like that right there. That's enough, okay? All right, so good.
I'm done. I am done with this.
You're one of the ones evacuated from the house. I mean, give me
I fucking live there. It's my house. It's my son. Right. It's my... You're talking to me, right? Like,
Yeah, so anyway, I figured like we should like show... We talk a lot about like the meat market aspect of like NFL combine season. I don't know if people realize like what right now, without there being a combine... pro days are all over the place. So, like, basically, this is like a good, for those of you that are not that familiar with the way these things go, I think it's kind of interesting to see, because what you'll see is on a usual one of these, lots of NFL scouts standing around and just kind of like watching and like really just examining the muscle texture and tissue and like all the different like kind of like, features and attributes here of, each of these like college players, doing their pro day workout for each of the NFL teams that want to come. They do these on their college campuses. Usually there's a combine in February in Indianapolis every year. That was canceled this year. So anyways, I'll show you a little clip here of something. Let's see here. So Kyle Pitts from Florida, who could be probably be a top 5 pick. So, number 2 on the big board with Mel Kiper Jr. right now. So this is sort of the dynamic you see. There's NFL teams all kind of in the background here, and they're all just sort of watching.
That was me being like, he'll be picked in the top 10.
Pitts, also impressed in the jumps, a 10'9" broad jump, right? 4.44 40-yard dash. How about that wingspan? Our terrific researcher here with us working through our draft coverage, Jack, gave me some context here. The Pitts 4.44 unofficial 40. He's the only wide receiver or tight end since 2003 to check.
Look at all the stopwatches. Bam, 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 bam.
In at least 6'5" and run a faster 40. That Calvin Johnson, the only guy to run a faster 40.
That's pretty good
company. That's pretty good company.
The loophole, of course, as Jack says, is that Jaguars legend Matt Jones ran the 4.38, but he was part of the quarterback group. Remember, what was it? Moritz Boehringer was
that one. Let's see.
I predict he falls to Denver, but
let's see if he falls to Denver.
I think that we're going to see a lot of overvalued positions go too early because I don't think GMs know what they're doing.
What was your combine?
Yeah, and I'll just play this. I don't like Brian Urlacher. He's a right winger, but this is actually a good clip of him talking about like the meat market aspect of the combine. Did you want to say something though before you play this?
No, this is just me being a sports pundit that I shit on at the beginning. This is just me saying that I actually think that because GMs are so bad at their jobs, I think we're going to see a run on like 4 positions, and that tight end will fall, and you're going to literally wind up seeing like Kyle Pitts line up next to Noah Fant. Anyway, that's all I'm saying. Like because that's what GMs do, right? Like GMs do a bad job and they don't get fired. So
yeah, it's amazing how like some of them how long it takes to get some of them fired.
Coaches though gone, like mid-season gone. GMs, yeah, they can hang around. It's fine.
No, you're right, man. It's ridiculous. So. Anyway, so check this out, and let's we're interested to hear what you think about Brian Urlacher's comments about the combine here.
Experience like
with Rich Eisen, former Sports Center host, who grew up in the '90s, like I did, and now with his own little show here.
Stressful, man. So I wasn't gonna run or leave when I went there because everyone back then no one ran. It was like you should wait till your pro day because you're gonna run faster, you're gonna be more comfortable, blah blah blah. So. And then I got there, and I sat in a meeting with the Bears, and Coach Bosch goes, "Are you running tomorrow?" I said, "No, sir, I'm not. I was advised not to run." He goes, "What do you got to hide? Are you not in shape?" I said, "No, I was advised not to run." He goes, "Are you not fast? Are you? Can you not do drills?" I was like, "No, I can do them. I just was told not to." He goes, "Well, I feel like you're hiding something if you don't run." So of course I went out and ran the next day. Thank goodness I did. And his thought was, every GM's here, every scout's here, every head coach is here. And they're not all going to be at your pro day. So this is your best chance to showcase your abilities in front of every single one of them.
That was Greg Blosh, right? The difference.
Yeah.
No, it worked out well for Urlacher because he's like an absolute physical freak. When he was in college at the University of New Mexico, he returned punts, kicks, played safety, running back. I mean, every position on the field. It's unfortunate he has pretty terrible politics. He's a big Trumper, I think. But, it is interesting what he said though. Think of that type of pressure there. It ended up working out well for him because he did so well running into 40 in the drills. But just the idea that by you not doing that at the combine and just waiting for your pro day, that you got something to hide. You got something to hide. What you can't That's the kind of stuff. But those are the kind of tactics that, as elite athletes, you're just constantly subjected to, and then you have to kind of internalize, what's important, what's not, who to listen to, who not. But you have people in your ear from every which direction trying to tell you what is best for your life, and that can lead to some pretty tough, hard places mental health wise for a number of people.
The defense, right? Yeah, right. So who was the head? Did you have any meetings with anybody named McCaskey? Who else did you chat with from the Bears?
I don't know if they were in our meeting or not. Mark McCaskey was in there, who was our GM at the time. Coach Sharon was in there. Coach, the D coordinator, is he still at Philly?
Yeah.
It's just weird. It's not weird, but it's a market. For those.
That was asked of you at the combine, Urlacher.
Like, I don't know. I think I'm pretty fast. And I can tackle people. I don't know what to say.
Did you get asked any of those crazy ass questions? What's the craziest question you remember that was asked of you at the combine, Urlacher?
The weirdest thing for me was just walking around with your shirt off all day. There's 300 guys there, and everywhere you go, no one's dressed. It's just weird. It's not weird, but it's a meat market. For those 2 or 3 hours.
What do you think? Is it a meat market, Justin?
No, it's look, DK Metcalf. End of story. Yeah. Like they make a deal out of him being picked because he took his shirt off in front of the coach.
No big deal.
You weren't.
I guess
it's
just weird.
Why would you not take your shirt off if you're DK Metcalf?
I get that. I do get that.
Back then, we're flexed all the time. I didn't need to flex. I was young and I was no body fat. And a little different now, but back then I didn't have to walk around flexing.
Do you remember what you ran?
I ran a 4.5. 8 or 7 at the combine, and I was so happy.
That's insanely good for his position, but not insanely. It's really good. So let's see. What was the other one here? I wanted to show real quick before we get out of the sure. You had Justin. What would there was something you wanted to mention real quick? I was gonna out myself, but I'll leave it. We're good. Out yourself.
DK Metcalf, though.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say
let's check him out.
I turned.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah.
I turned 40 on Sunday, and I'm at like 14% body fat. So if I was DK Metcalf and I was at like 6% body fat, yeah, I'd pop my shirt off in front of the coach. Yeah, I get that. I get why he did that.
Yeah. So there's
meat market. It's an absolute meat market. It's what it is. It's flaunt for us, which it's funny because you deal with the most like homophobic people in the fan base, but yet the combine is the most like homoerotic.
Oh,
just absolute meat market that you could possibly come across. Anyway, yeah. It's comical. In baseball, when you're scouted, you can keep your shirt on. It's fine. John Kruk played baseball.
Yeah. Look at that.
He was good.
Oh, no, you can't see this actually. I typed in NFL Combine homoerotic and a bunch of like, let's just say weird stuff came up, man. All right. So, anyways, DK Metcalf, no shirt. Yeah, here you go.
Yeah, that dude's built.
Oh no, you're about to like. Well, we're gonna end on you're gonna be laughing here in a moment. I can promise you that.
How about Metcalf, huh? We'll talk about it.
So Shaquille Griffin, now is in Jacksonville.
Yeah, Jacksonville. Oh, you're gonna get both of them. I'm sorry, man. They come as a package deal. I don't know if you know this, but like you're gonna get both.
Carol, take his shirt.
They're from Orlando.
Yeah.
So you're gonna love this because you're not just gonna get DK.
We forgot about DK.
You're about to get Justin's favorite.
Pete was really that huge. That's kind of you gotta be careful. Caught me off guard.
Pete Carroll, Jordan Peterson's favorite.
About DK no more after I seen
Pete Carroll, Justin.
Insane.
Pete Carroll, Justin Williams'
favorite. Walking statue. I was like,
yeah,
you can't be having all that muscle. You put Pete in front of a store like a mannequin.
I had no idea.
You look good,
right? I know, and like that, you won't talk about somebody who's just putting it out there.
Hold on, let's see here. Yeah. No.
Well, I was surprised that he came into our interview with his shirt off.
That's funny.
And it kind of pissed me off, so I took my shirt off too.
All right. like just our analysis, Justin?
I mean, what do I have to say to this? I mean,
he's one. This is one of your like. This is one of your. It's not often in life you get a chance to like just admire like the inspiration for your life. You know, Pete Carroll. He's just like such a dynamic, like kind of quirky, outside the box guy. You know, learned from Bill Walsh, real innovator. You know,
Yeah.
And just look at that body, man. You know, don't you just there you.
I mean, he's the oldest coach in the NFL. I mean, maybe
he's forever young though. Right?
Yeah.
Too long.
He's not a coach. He's a cheerleader. It's
awesome. That's strange.
I tried to pitch years ago. I pitched Nike an ad with Marshawn and Pete Carroll.
Yeah.
And Pete Carroll was the main detractor in that, so that'll always piss me off as well. But I always wanted to the idea is that Pete Carroll wears Nike Monarchs, which is like the cargo short dad shoe. Like it is the ultimate alt-right dad shoe. That's just what it is. And really wanted to pitch this idea where we were going to film a Nike commercial with him and Marshawn, and we were going to do them going into a shoe store and Marshawn trying to be the one who's trying to teach Pete Carroll what shoe he should wear. But Pete Carroll keeps going back to the Monarch, and he keeps talking about how it's just so comfortable. And it goes with anything. It goes with these cargo pants. It goes with these cargo shorts. It goes with these pleated pants, which is like a jab at Jim Harbaugh. Anyway, I mean, you got to remember, this is like Seattle 2014 when this idea was pitched. So it all made sense. And then when they left the store, Marshawn was wearing Monarchs. That was the whole that was the joke. Was that it wasn't that Marshawn convinced Pete Carroll to buy a shoe. It was that Pete Carroll convinced Marshawn to wear Monarchs, which Marshawn wouldn't be caught dead in Monarchs. And Nike liked that idea. Marshawn liked that idea. You know who hated that idea? Pete Carroll. Fuck that guy. Anyway, get a joke, man. What? Get a joke.
So
it's a joke.
So, I get it. Yeah, no, he doesn't get a joke though, right? He just it's.
Yeah, no, he doesn't, because he invites Jordan Peterson to talk to the team. Imagine being a Seahawks player, any of them, and being like, Jordan Peterson's coming to talk to us. What the fuck?
I don't even know who that guy is. They don't athletes aren't that into following Jordan Peterson.
Michael Bennett was on the team at that point. Put yourself in Michael Bennett's shoes and having Jordan Peterson lecture you on winning philosophies.
No, you're just. It's disgusting, man. It really. That is. It's not what you want, man. Not what you want. Let's see here. I'm trying to. Is this the part here where he's with the Raiders? All right, yeah. Let's listen to this, Ryan. We'll close on this. Ryan, he's a weird guy, but I think this fits with, I don't know, his politics or whatever.
Ryan Leaf.
Yeah. But
knock it off. Sorry, that quote's burned into my head.
I mean, speaking of that, if you want to see, he's the personification of what it means to be a bust on every level imaginable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the fact that there was even a debate, right, between drafting Peyton Manning or Ryan Leaf. They don't want to make light guys overcome some serious substance abuse issues, but I don't want to. His politics suck.
Yeah, but
anyways, let's see what he says about Hunter S. Thompson here, because this directly ties back to we started the show off talking about. Just give it a chance, check it out on Patreon. I think that you'll enjoy it. We'll start doing more of these early release stuff on Patreon, and just anything else. All right, it's I guess neither of us get into this or have any ideas designs and trying to really make some big money maker out of this at all. It's just
but
a little project in, but it's
get better.
Money, and it's mental energy, and it's but we want to keep doing this, and we think it's important, and there's space for like different conversations that need to have, and we can keep doing that. Tonight was more of a laid back kind of just Mike couldn't be on, he'll be back next week. Dan Kovalik will be on with this, but I want to just more on the Hunter S. Thompson, Oakland Raiders, radio war nerd kind of like direction we've been going tonight. Let's hear Leaf explain this Hunter S. Thompson letter to Rich Eisen here.
And have you back in studio here on the show. Chris Brockman, Ryan Leaf, sends me a letter by direct message. Don't put it up just yet. You sent it to me.
He just looks like a right winger from like Eastern Washington, I just gotta say, right?
Like,
yep.
What the hell is this? There's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
I'm like, is this real? You're like, I think it's real. This is a letter that has come into Ryan's possession. We'll get into that in a second as to how it has. Written in March of 1998 to Colts owner Jim Irsay, who at the time, a month away in the draft, the decision between you and Peyton Manning.
Right.
Put the letter up. It's from Hunter S. Thompson.
Oh,
okay. The brilliant Hunter S. Thompson.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Fear and Loathing himself.
Dear James.
Dear James. Okay, March 14th, 1998. Dear James, in response to your addled request for a quick $30 million loan to secure the services of the Manning kid, I have to say no at this time. But the Leaf boy is another matter. He looks strong and Manning doesn't, or at least not strong enough to handle that welcome to the NFL business for 2 years without a world-class offensive.
Yeah, Hunter was losing his prognosticating skills, I guess, at this point in his life.
Line. How are you fixed at left OT for the next few years, James? Think about it. You don't want a China doll back there when that freak sack.
I got to throw in some good xenophobia there, but it's it's different context, honestly, back then. But it's pretty pervasive in American.
Comes crashing in. Wow. Okay, let me know if you need some money for Leaf. I expect to be very rich when this Depp movie comes out. Your faithful consultant, Hunter, and it's signed HST, with at the bottom scrawled in handwriting, CC John Walsh, ESPN, and CC Colonel Depp. Now, John Walsh of ESPN is the godfather of SportsCenter, who I've known for 20-some-odd years, and was Hunter S. Thompson's former editor at Rolling Stone. He was Hunter S. Thompson for years. So, Ryan, I say, is this real? And you said, how did you come into possession of this letter?
So, I'm a Chicago Cubs fan, and they were in town last week, and I was sitting there.
Another strike against them there, Justin.
Behind the dugout, and a guy
in LA here
in LA, and a guy tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Are you Ryan? Are you Ryan Leaf?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Man, I'm just such a fan of what you're doing now at the foundation and everything like that." And
I love it. It's like, in other words, I'm a fan of what you're doing now is a nice way of saying you really effing suck.
Yeah, it's like, fan of what he's.
Have you ever seen the Hunter S. Thompson?
Yeah, what's that?
Fan of what he's doing now, but like, how many relapses was this video and like pre or prior? Because I don't know, like, I'm with you. There was a time where I rooted for Ryan Leaf's like second coming and then third coming and then fourth coming. But like, dude has literally relapsed once a year for the last 5 years. So it's like, is he overcoming or is he Ryan Leafing rehab? I hate to say that in such a dismissive way, but like, he's Ryan Leafing it.
Yeah.
Like, he needs to stop Ryan Leafing it.
Yeah. And
he just keeps doing it.
We'll have to show some of y'all that little video there of of Leaf in his like locker room tirade that became stuff of legends in the NFL.
Knock it off!
A little bit more of this
letter, and I'm like,
because
no, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like,
we got 7 people on now. All right, they're building up a little bit. What's up, everybody?
I grew up around the corner from Jimmy Irsay, and I was in Tokyo opening up DirecTV Japan at the DirecTV Japan, and I got this letter. Would you like to see it? And I said, well, yeah, of course. I mean, I didn't believe it for a second, right? And there it came in the email, and I showed it to my fiance, who's a huge Hunter S. Thompson fan, and we read it, and the absurdity of the fact that A, Hunter S. Thompson knew who I was, and B, that he was trying to persuade Mr. Irsay to draft me instead was just
comical, and not to see it for 20 years. How does it? It's just nowhere to be found.
Nowhere to be found.
Right.
It's and so you're like, let's talk about it. I'm like, well, I just got to see if it's real first. So I Googled Hunter S. Thompson's signature. Looks just like it. It's the HST. And then I'm like, why the hell am I not just calling John Walsh, who I've known forever? I called John Walsh of ESPN, and I spoke with him this morning after texting with him over the July 4th holiday, because you sent this to me just a couple days ago. And he says, because he's known Hunter and his family's known Hunter S. for years, he said his wife was like, why are they thinking it's not real? And as a matter of fact, it's 1,000% real.
Wow.
It's 1,000% real. And he told me how Irsay hooked up with Hunter S. Thompson to begin with, is that Irsay bought in auction an original copy of On the Road by Jack Kerouac and wanted it verified as real, and reached out to Hunter S. Thompson to verify it. And the two of them hit it off. And Hunter S. Thompson was a huge NFL fan who, interestingly enough, loved Al Davis, and obviously had an opinion on the 1998 draft.
Well, I think now that we know that a lot of people had an opinion on the 1998 NFL draft.
Yes.
So we'll stop this.
This one in particular,
But real quick, go back to something here. I want to. This is something that I don't know. Like, I want to get your take on this, because I've been talking part 2 of with the the War Nerd finishing up, and one thing that, the sound got kind of messed up. This is one of the most famous plays in NFL history, and kind of coming from the Immaculate Reception, is called, in Pittsburgh. And I just want to get your forensic analysis. Was this a legal play, or is this not a legal play?
I just want to throw out there that the first pick in the 1998 draft, we all know who it should have been, and it wasn't. And that was Charles Woodson.
For the Steelers. Bradshaw.
No, I mean, that would not have been the smartest pick for the Colts. I mean, in fairness, I mean, if you're like drafting, you can't base it off of like who you like the most, man. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but
I know, but like,
yeah. I mean,
longest longevity, like successful career, regular season wins.
I mean, but Peyton Manning's like one of the greatest of all time. I mean, like
who chokes in every big game.
Yeah, but I don't like the argument that like you measure like greatness by Super Bowls, because like I think Dan Marino is one of the greatest of all time.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. But I mean, he certainly doesn't have the Tom Brady clutch gene, to put it that way.
Trying to get away. And his pass is...
So look at that. That would, first of all, be an illegal hit now, but... Like,
yep.
Like, that's Tatum, but whatever.
And his pass is...
So, that's game over, right?
Broken up by Tatum.
Yeah.
Tipped off. Franco Harris has it. And he's over. What? Franco Harris. Grab the ball.
The refs do not know what to do.
5 seconds to go.
This is like 2 days before Christmas in 1972 for context. So, December 23rd, 1972. Divisional round, the playoffs.
Let's watch this again. The 1 odds on this one.
Watch this, ricochet.
Yeah,
ricochet out there off of Jack Tatum and into the man of the year, Franco Harris's hands.
Yeah, they don't have to. That's not the best angle though there, but it's like there's a whole that's a whole debate thing I want to get into, because there's according to the rules it probably shouldn't have been, but there was no way they could have really overturned that. Anyways, like what is going on with the Cardinals now, since we're just kind of going around the horn a little bit here?
Yeah.
Like there's. Oh no, I know who it was. Glenn Burke. I want to hit something on him because I know that our friend Miguel Garcia talked about that. You've mentioned Tommy Lasorda's son, and Glenn Burke was like the first open, gay player, and the fact that Billy's treated like absolute just dog shit by Billy Martin, famous Yankee manager, but at the time he was like managing the A's when he was up there, and then with the Dodgers. he was like dating Tommy Lasorda Jr. and Tommy Lasorda got him out of town, like because of that. So he basically had his career ruined over his sexuality. There's an author that has a book out about him now that Miguel interviewed, and we should probably get on the show. We should try to reach out to him. Would be interesting. His name is Andrew.
I mean, Tommy Lasorda truly believes that his son, who died of AIDS and those complications in the 90s, didn't die of AIDS.
No,
it's a Daniel Murphy level of like
you had him dying and not feeling anything really, right? I mean, it's just like whatever.
It is, you know, he literally thought that he died of something else because he convinced himself that he died of something else when that's not the case. Like, well, it's denial on a level that.
I mean, think about it, man. I mean, my granddad is about to be 99. Like, I mean, like literally, you know, when he was, you know, the West Pointer and reached full colonel in the Army, but one of his main jobs was like actually rooting out like subversives and like, you know, and you know, like reporting. So it's like that's something that another thing you gotta, you know, it's just, you know, what do you do? It's like, but that's like that's where our culture comes from, and that generation. The homophobia is really rooted in like an insecure masculinity, you know, that's fragile. I think that's absolutely just a fact. But you know, about Glenn Burke, real quick, I put in the chat like it's called "Singled Out: The True Story of Glenn Burke," and it goes into this. It's by Andrew Marinus. So check out Miguel Garcia's interview with him on Sports as a Weapon podcast. In fact, like. We can even I'll even link to it here because I think that it's that important to check out some of Miguel's work. I mean, what he's done there, I think is actually he doesn't have that much stuff up here on YouTube. You go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, and check out that because I'm going to link to it here, like I said. Because I think it's that important, and we should definitely, as he's recommended too, we should have we should try to have the author on.
Absolutely. I'd love to have a conversation.
So let's see here. I think this is his website here. Oh, good. All right, so he's got. That's something we should probably talk about too. Justin is like, I don't know what it would cost website wise, but I'm gonna put that in the chat and say, check out Miguel Garcia's interview with the author of the new book on Glenn Burke, Andrew, what's his name? Marinus. All right, so good. That's on there. I'll save it in the chat. So, I think whatever. It's like there's the thing about, so let's see, Glenn Burke, Tommy Lasorda. Let me see if I can get this. There's a little video here. I think that kind of goes into it. Because actually here, so.
I love that first headline. Tommy Lasorda had a complicated relationship with his son. Yeah, no shit. He denied his son's existence and denied his son's cause of death. That's a complicated relationship.
But look at this. When you look at this, it's all like great stuff about Tommy Lasorda here. Even though I typed in.
Oh yeah, of course.
You gotta Glenn Burke. What the heck is this? Says Keith Olbermann. I can't even tolerate that.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
I mean, wow, man, just wow.
Yeah.
League baseball players in the 100.
As you mentioned, Billy Bean here.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Dear Glenn, I was thinking of you this week. Working at Major League Baseball makes it inevitable that you weave in and out of my thoughts. We're forever linked as we are the only two Major League Baseball players in the 151-year history of MLB to ever publicly disclose that we are gay. It hurts that I never got to meet you. Your career ended long before mine began, and our paths never intersected. But I do know many people that played alongside you. And because of you, I've had the good fortune to become friends with your amazing sister, Lutha. On June 17th, 2015, the Oakland A's celebrated your career at their first ever LGBT Pride game. And before the game, your niece, Alice Rose, introduced me to almost 60 members of your extended family. It was easy to see the impact you made on every one of them, which had nothing to do with your baseball talent and everything to do with the kind of person you were. I stood right next to your brother Sidney as he threw out the first pitch. Then I got to watch the Oakland A's donate over $23,000 to AIDS Project East Bay in your name. I know how much this moment would have meant to you, and it broke my heart that you weren't there to see it. Coming full circle has helped me let go of much of my own personal disappointment, and I know that you were robbed of that opportunity. And sadly, this week will mark 25 years since you passed away, much too young. I often think about how my life and career might have been different had we known each other, and I believe we would have become great friends. We lived the same isolation and fears while playing a sport we loved, and doing so during a time that was much different and much less accepting. I can only imagine what it would have been like to listen to your stories of baseball in the 1970s and how many mistakes your advice would have saved me from making. I would have told you about one season in winter ball in Venezuela while on a long bus ride, one of your former teammates talked about the greatest athlete he ever saw in the minor leagues, some guy named Glenn Burke. There's no mention of your sexual orientation, only that you would have easily played in the NBA.
I mean, let's just like take a moment. Like, this guy was like it was supposed to be like it's compared to like Willie Mays. Like, was like they had the level of athleticism, and I'll be honest, I didn't know who he was until like a few months ago, and that's, you could say, an indictment on me, but I think more of an indictment on just like the way that people like Glenn Burke have been, until recently, kind of, it's like we say all this stuff about you hear MLB supporting LGBTQ rights and pride becoming such a big thing, and corporate America even embracing. But how does it not extend? It gets to the perfect essence of liberalism, perfect distillation of liberalism's like absurdity and contradictions. Are like someone like Tommy Lasorda dies, and if you like say anything bad about the dead, so to speak, you're a violent, evil, despicable, vile person. Well, nobody's having that same discourse about, they just, it was just a product of his time. It was just like it was a blind spot. And it's like, these aren't just like mistakes, I mean, it's a certain point, these are conscious decisions. And it's like, certainly that, people should be given chances to grow and redeem themselves. But Lasorda never sought that, never remotely tried to wrestle with it, and really took actions that like helped ruin the career of someone that could have been one of the best of all time.
It is a don't speak bad about the dead I've heard of. That's really what it is.
Yeah, no, you're right.
It's
no.
Don't speak bad about that guy I've heard of versus but if that guy that you've heard of spoke shit about someone you didn't, then it doesn't matter. Like because that's exactly what happened when Tommy died. And, I was one of those people, like several people who took to Twitter who was like, yeah, we all remember this guy running out to hug Kirk Gibson. Like, everyone remembers that.
Mm-hmm.
But let's remember the shitty things that he did too. Like, because there were positives and negatives, because I don't know, he's a person and that's kind of how that works. But like, we also can control what kind of shitty person we are. He was an exceptional shitty person. And just because you've heard of him doesn't mean I'm going to shut up, because his son's life, Burke's life, there's a lot of lives that he affected in a negative way. And just because he's the more prominent, we can't speak ill about him when he spoke ill about the dead. So yeah, it's
absolutely
that mentality. Yeah,
it's got to be challenged, and I'm glad we both kind of just made that point. So let's check out
Most importantly, I wish I could sit down with you and tell you about all the ways that baseball has changed for the better, and how we would have never arrived at where we are without you. In 2014, at the MLB All-Star Game in Minneapolis, I was announced as MLB's very first ambassador for inclusion. As the commissioner announced my name, Luther was sitting right next to me, holding my hand as I got up to address the media on live television. Since that time, I've watched baseball transform itself into a leader for LGBTQ education and acceptance. Our former team, the Los Angeles Dodgers, continue to blaze a progressive trail of acceptance for all fans and professional sports. Since my return to baseball, I personally worked with every MLB club to broaden education that fosters an inclusive and accepting clubhouse, workplace, and fan experience in all our MLB ballparks. Over the past 3 years, MLB Shred Hate Bullying Prevention Education Program has reached almost...
So, Justin, how are you tolerating this kind of like Billy Beane being used as like Major League Baseball sort of, in this role? Like, can you kind of explain sort of how Major League Baseball is maybe exploiting Billy Beane by this, or just like...
Yeah, and absolutely. And, this is going to go back to my former time working for Amazon Corporate, right? And being asked to make a diversity and inclusion video, and being asked by Beth Galletti, who runs Amazon's HR, talking about an awful job. And she kind of exposed it. And it's the same way that it is everywhere. Same way in Major League Baseball as it is at a large corporation, as it is at a small company. It's the same way across the board. And that is that it's about the idea of diversity and inclusion and less about the diversity part and the inclusion part. It is about the optics of this, not the substantive change that can come of this. So the example I was going to use, right, of the Amazon video, we were asked to show that Amazon has all kinds of people from all walks of life that are all about Amazon succeeded. So these are company people. So their ideology is that capitalism's great and that Amazon's doing a good job at it. That's not very diverse, no matter what they look like, no matter the optics. It's all the same goal, right? It's no different than people being like, Biden has the most diverse cabinet. Yeah, he has the most diverse cabinet of imperialist fuckfaces that have ever been assembled. Their ideology is all the same. So what does it matter? The optics. It's the same reason for when somebody who is a minority or somebody who's LGBTQIA or somebody who is female or somebody has bad ideas and you critique the ideas and somebody just says, hey, you can't do that, they're a woman. Hey, you can't do that, they're a minority. Bad ideas are bad ideas. The optics of bad ideas don't so much matter. And baseball is what they're doing here is the opposite, which is it's the optics part of that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, read. Neil's got a message for you, man.
Hey, nice. Fuckface representation matters. Yeah. So it's one of those things that like it's not actual diversity. It's not actual diversity if I pull in a rainbow coalition of Amazon company people who just want Amazon to succeed, but yet we're supposed to represent the fact that, like, look, there's this diverse class of ideas. There's this diverse, like, world that exists, but it all has the same goal. And if it has the same goal, just like Biden's cabinet is just a bunch of imperialists. It's the same fuckfaces that Neil's referencing, right? So the idea that that's all that diversity is, when a diversity should be more than just the optics of it, it should be the ideology of it. So
are
bring in.
Are you a racist?
See, exactly.
See,
Yeah. So
I did that for a precise reason. That's exactly.
Yeah.
It just sounds like a parody, but it's like that's not though. It's like that's.
Yeah, and what they're doing with Billy Beane here is that, I mean, you got to remember that was right after Daniel Murphy's statement, like that when he was named the czar. I'm going to say czar because it's a better word. The czar of inclusion. When he was put in that position, was within 3 months of Daniel Murphy's comments about how he didn't believe that Billy Beane was actually gay. That's MLB looking for optics. That's MLB using, and is Billy Beane going to jump at the opportunity to be this person? Fuck yes, he is, because he's the first openly gay, like outed gay player to admit it himself.
I don't know about you. I support him, and I think it's actually smart. I mean, anybody.
No, 100%.
Like, gonna spend the money on it. It can't do any more.
Yeah,
it can't do any harm. It can only do
exactly. But like, look at what baseball's trying to get out of it. It's no different than like an argument I had 2 days ago, driving into work and talking to my dad, and him talking about how he's pissed at baseball because baseball moved the All-Star game from Georgia, and I'm going. They're owned by like the most conservative white billionaires on the planet. They still have no minority owner. They'll never have it. Baseball will never have a minority owner. It's never going to happen. Baseball is the most regressive.
Never's a long time.
But baseball's about tradition. Anyway, Anyway, my point is that them moving the All-Star game because of the Georgia vote wasn't about anything other than, again, optics. They're ran by a commissioner who's a far-right racist piece of shit, and they're owned by owners that are far-right racist pieces of shit. This is not about them disagreeing with what Georgia did. This is about the optics of them disagreeing with what Georgia did. It doesn't matter what state they move it to. That organization, MLB is an organization, and those owners aren't going to change. They support what Georgia did. Their optics, if they go, okay, so 40% to 60% of baseball fans look at this and think it's a good move, that's good for baseball, that's all they care about.
Right.
So
no doubt.
And again with the Billy Beane thing, like, love Billy Beane for taking up this position. Yeah, you don't say no to the opportunity, but understand what baseball's doing. And baseball's doing what all corporations do. It's what Beth Galetti at Amazon asked me to do. It's what they all do. Make us look good, because optics matter more than the actual product. And yeah, so.
Anyways, let's go ahead and finish the.
200,000 students across. And if we were able to talk, there's so many things I would want to share with you. Most importantly, I would want to say thank you. In my heart, we are family, and I will. As the commissioner announced my name, Luther was sitting right next to me holding my hand as I got up to address the media on live television. Since that time, I've watched baseball transform itself into a leader for LGBTQ education and acceptance. Our former team, the Los Angeles Dodgers, continue to blaze a progressive trail of acceptance for all fans and professional sports. Since my return to baseball, I personally worked with every MLB club to broaden education that fosters an inclusive and accepting clubhouse, workplace, and fan experience in all our MLB ballparks. Over the past 3 years, MLB's Shred Hate Bullying Prevention Education Program has reached almost 200,000 students across 13 MLB cities, and even hundreds of thousands more online, with many of our most dynamic superstars supporting that message and proclaiming that everyone is a part of this team. Glenn, if we were able to talk, there's so many things I would want to share with you. Most importantly, I would want to say thank you. In my heart, we are family, and I will continue to honor your memory in my fight for equality and acceptance for everybody. Rest in peace.
So you might be asking, like, who is Glenn Burke? And I think, like, it's important to at least just give you a quick he invented the high five, first of all. For those of you
Yeah.
who know.
100% he did.
Yeah. Let's see. So, wow, this is like, it's not as easy as you think. All right.
Yeah, it's tough to.
Thought there was more on here.
And there's not, and that's why I'd love to get the author on.
What's going on, guys? It's Rob Smith.
Yeah, well, I found
you have to do
one.
Yeah.
In honor of Black History.
Yeah, we absolutely. Andrew Marinus, we'll try to get him on. Talk to Miguel. I think we'll be able to make that happen. Authors like going on shows. You know, they got books to sell and good opportunity to bring awareness about Glenn Burke, and also trace like the impact of his story on baseball's development, and kind of see what lessons we can learn from it.
History Month, we are honoring the following great people who were so far ahead of their time, in a time when their memory is more important than ever. Did you know the first openly gay player in Major League Baseball already played way back in the 70s? His name was Glenn Burke, and he played in 4 seasons and 225 games from 1976 to 1979. During the entire time, he refused to stay in the closet. His teammates were well aware during the entire time, despite the bullying and taunting he endured. In 1994, he told People magazine his mission as a gay ball player was to break stereotypes, and that he thought it had worked. Burke died of AIDS-related causes in 1995.
All right, so I think we're going to go ahead and take you to the house here for tonight. Anything you want to close on should be on our radar. I know real quickly, like the Supreme Court thing last week, remember, there's not going to be a decision on that until June. The LSU stuff we didn't talk about tonight. More stuff is coming out, drip, about like just how pernicious of it. I mean, just how insidious like the whole culture was there with regards to Title IX reporting, and Darius Geist, the monster who played for the Washington football team at LSU, who's kind of has a pattern now of this. So absolutely, it's there's so much more we didn't get to, but yeah, I'm done. Yeah, I appreciate y'all hanging tonight, Neil, Jack off Altrade, MT. We had MT too. Yeah, there were good group of y'all, and actually
absolutely
another lively Vladimir Kurlagrand. Vlad was his co-worker of mine in Jersey City. Man, he actually running for an AFSCME position to be a steward with AFSCME, and made sure to showcase something that he put up there. Vlad is I used to work at the same school. He was a security guard at the high school, and anyways, like where I taught English and creative and critical writing and whatever. So he is exactly right. Andrew Johnson paved the way for the Jim Crow era. And as you see there, like Vlad spot on again as usual with historical analysis, man. So I'm really happy. Glad I actually personally sent him the link, so I like appreciate it. Neil dropping the bars without starting it off with I prefer rent pig. So but Vlad, the people's historian, we appreciate you, brother. Any last comments? Again, check it out on Patreon. The interview with John Dolan, aka Gary Bretcher, the war nerd from Radio War Nerd fame, from The Exiled, who's the author of the War Nerd Iliad. He is also the author of the audiobook that is read by the author, Pleasant Hell, a pun on Pleasant Hill, the East Bay neighborhood in which he grew up in the time of the late 60s and early 70s. So really insightful stuff. And with that, I'll turn it over to Justin to take us out for the night.
I mean, all I got to say is that fuckface representation matters.
All right.
Sorry, that was the quote. That was the quote of the night, Neil. Good job. Yeah, just thanks everybody for hanging out and sticking with us for the last couple hours. And Thursdays, I think, are the yeah 3 hours. I think Thursdays is the new Wednesday. So
there you go. Michael just have to hop on board, I guess, because Wednesday it's not going to work. It's not about me being a dictator or whatever, making decisions, but there's just too much. It makes too much sense. So with that, we're out. Mike Sampson will be back in the saddle next week, and we will have Dan Kovalik on the show too. We can't wait. Again, get a copy of his book, No More War. I did a blurb up, as always, all his books do. Oliver Stone says how No More War, how the West violates international law by using humanitarian intervention to advance economic and strategic interest. All right, it's I can't recommend it's got blurbs by Ray McGovern, former CIA analyst and co-founder of Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity, Abby Martin of the Empire Files, and good personal friend and friend of the show, Danny Hyphon. So we appreciate it. Appreciate y'all sticking it out with us. Everybody else coming on and helping out on Patreon today. That was huge.
Yeah,
so we'll have
absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll have that available. I'll have it out released to everybody at some point, but we got to start giving some kind of perks here to get this.
And we'll start doing some. Yep, and we'll start doing some tiers. We'll start offering more perks, and yeah, we'll keep building this thing.
All right, yeah, sounds good. So we'll be on the lookout. That is actually up on Patreon now. If you want to check it out, it's you don't have to give. You can give whatever. I'm pretty sure it's not limited to a minimum, I don't think. But anyways, we appreciate it. It's been great, and until next time, be well and keep fighting.